I'd like to bring the meeting of the building service board meeting to order. Time is 10:02. Roll call.
Jim Kramer's here.
Tom Roberts.
Alan Brown
Mr. Grady?
is here. Did anybody have any questions or comments on the March 14th minutes?
I had none.
Do you have a motion to approve the minutes?
A motion for you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Adjustment requests.
What's yours? I'm sorry, but
Adjustment requests.
yes, in your file or in your packet, you will see the requests on there.
Okay.
I at least eyeballed all three of them, and they all seem to be due to leaks that were outside between the house and me. And I'm sure Phyllis and everybody's done their job, and so I think they're okay to approve.
Okay, Robin did have a question on the second one,
Oh,
okay? And the only reason is how often do we call somebody to let them know they have a potential leak before it starts becoming more of their issue and not ours?
She noticed that the leak was there and tried to contact him and wasn't able to contact him. So what point is it? Okay, we're trying to make you aware of this leak at this point, but it's continued and continued. Where do we say, okay, well, we knew about it, we tried to let you know, and now maybe up to that date, we tried to contact you is all that we allow for reimbursement. All right.
Did you finally, like, how long did they get back to you?
2 months. The phone number that they gave, which is what they ended up calling me on, you can't leave a message. Well, the second time I found out she had an email. So I emailed it to her. Then she called and said there must be a typo on the bill because it was outrageous. And I said, no, it's not. I've been trying to contact you for a couple months now. You've got something going on there. Sure enough, it was a leak. But I don't know why. I mean, the number she called on was the same number we have because we have caller IDs. So I don't know why we cannot leave messages for some people.
Is this a full-time residence?
I think when you read the leak rules, you can only get one leak adjustment per year. So this is their one for this year. And is this leak adjustment a leak adjustment, or meaning prior bills, if it was leaking in the bill for one, and the bill was $300 and next month $300 and next month $300, and their normal bill was $50, so there was something going on to where you called them, is the adjustment for 3 or 4 months worth of leaks or just for 1 month?
No, it would be for the duration. Because they probably didn't have as much, like maybe
If they had
12,000.
answered when she called, the leak wouldn't have been as much, and we wouldn't have to compensate them for as much. If we had gotten a hold of them at the appropriate time when we tried. But now that it's went on, it's going to cost the town more.
But they're
Yes.
still paying for the water that we purchase. So it's not the town's losing out more other than,
Maybe I worded that one.
No, I understand what you're saying.
yeah,
I think if we were to make a change like that, we'd probably have to modify the ordinance to reflect it. I'm not sure that we want to be put in a position where we have some duty to notify people of potential leaks. So, I mean, my thought is that
Sandy has a point in that no matter how long the leak was lasting, if the water was in the ground, not going to the plant, then by them paying their normal monthly sewer bill, the town hasn't lost any sewer money because the water was going into the ground. And on the adjustment, they're at least paying their normal monthly bill plus the wholesale value of the water. Then it's not like we've lost potential revenue, but we haven't lost any.
That
haven't
doesn't really
necessarily
answer
lost
your
any
question.
money.
No.
Like-
no.
As far as,
We just didn't make money.
Right. We
If you
didn't
will.
make money.
because yeah, what if they had enough, even after 2 months, so then we went on for 6 months, do we, are we all?
I still
No,
think
because
we
you can
are.
only go back
Yeah.
60 days.
60, okay, so,
It's $1,500 with the adjustment.
Right.
And if it had been stopped sooner, the leak, then that adjustment wouldn't have been as big.
Correct.
With the adjustment,
But
we're
but
having.
on the adjustment, they're still paying their normal monthly water and their normal monthly sewer. On the expense side of the equation, they've still paid, in addition to their normal monthly bill, they're paying for the wholesale water, it's not paying for the sewer. So we haven't lost anything, we just haven't gained. The water.
Right.
Other
I
than
still
that,
make a motion that we approve the adjustment and make a note of what Robin and Phyllis are telling us that they tried to get a hold of.
and they're aware that you did and that they can only get one a year, so that happens again.
Mhm.
Is there a second?
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All right, all in favor?
Who seconded?
Aye.
Tom, that's his job.
Yeah,
I think that's something we can talk about in a work session to see if we want to change it, but I think we have to change the ordinance if we wanted to do something like that, but. certainly.
Well, you know, the other thought on this too, though, is if they had a leak, they had to notice that there was less water coming through. I think it would have been advantageous for them to do something.
right,
And it's not that we hunt for leads, we do the data reads,
Yeah.
in which our data, our lead tech does, so do notice that they're excessive. And we get a hold of all customers that have something that sticks out at us.
All right, monthly reports, budget revenue.
Did
management
you have
report.
something else?
Did you have something else?
yeah.
Yeah.
For months, we've had John Sadler
Mhm.
on, and we were waiting for the meter testing to come back. That is all in your packets. It's
Okay.
where you got the red flags.
so,
The long and short of it. I'm sorry, Phyllis came up and reviewed it with Tom and I, so we kind of looked at all the paperwork. I don't know that we have to look through all of it, you guys do, but the long and short of it is we do have the results back from the meter people. Where the old meter was taken out and sent to the meter people, and the answer is the meter is okay.
Okay.
There wasn't an error in the meter.
Okay.
And based on the data that she has, where for years prior to when the event occurred, they used in the neighborhood of, for fun, 5,000 gallons a month for a long time. Then on the one spreadsheet, you can see there was a quote unquote event. Where down at the bottom showing the normal stuff that was somewhere, well, between 0 and 500, but just for fun, call it 200. And 200 gallons a month or a day would equate to about 6,000 gallons a month. And then all of a sudden, somewhere between September and October, on the old meter, there was a problem. And then for 2 months afterwards, the problem went away. And it showed that they were using, the old meter was showing that they were using the same roughly 200 gallons a day versus all the blue ones on the right. So this is the old meter. And so here's their normal stuff. Oops, something's wrong. And then for 2 months, it went back to what it used to be. And on the, although the graph is a different scale, this is showing that on the new meter, we're still using the same roughly 125 to 200 gallons. So whatever event they had or issue that bumped them from 200 gallons to 2,000 gallons a day wasn't because of the meter. Doesn't seem to have been the meter.
Okay.
And I think the only thing we did was gave them a credit for the sewer.
Yes. And no penalties or anything until this got resolved.
Good job, Phyllis. Thank you.
So do we still have something then to vote on for this or to decide, or is this?
Yeah, because we were waiting on the meter results.
Mhm.
And right now they haven't, from my knowledge, has not paid any of that bill because, and no penalties or late fees until we got the results from the meter.
So why did they get a sewer credit if,
But they didn't get a sewer credit. I'm sorry, they don't live in town.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Disregard this.
So then the question is, what do we,
Do you want them to pay their full bill?
I think they should pay the full bill, but if we could waive the late fees and penalties, that would be a favor.
Right, and that has been going on.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I guess my suggestion, which I'm sure they're not gonna be happy with, but I would suggest that we bill them for whatever water they used during that time. But if we can, let's waive all the late fees and the penalties and
And
everything
if
else.
they can set up some kind of a payment
Exactly.
form
Yeah.
that they can tolerate, that would be okay too.
Well, the disagreement was the meter, and we proved that the meter was accurate.
Yeah. So can we get a motion then to do that?
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And we can certainly provide them copies of the report from the people on it. Okay, Phyllis, anything else? Sorry, I'm trying to.
No, that's okay. Let's see. Well, no, because my other next thing to bring up is with the budget. So no, I think that's.
Okay. All right, budget, where did we decide, is he gonna call in and do the budget report, or what did we?
He's on.
Okay.
Jarrod's on vacation.
Yeah, Brandon's on.
Okay.
Hello. Can you guys hear me all right?
Hang on a minute.
We can hear you, but we don't see you yet.
Okay, I just turned my camera on, so we'll see here. So what kind of camera is this? It's got me going 360 all the way around. That's pretty
Oh, there
cool.
you are. We got you now.
There we go.
It's
All
called
right.
a cool panel or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So it's good. It's good to, get everyone's facial reactions when we're going through this. So so I'm gonna assume that everyone's got a copy of the report that I had sent over to the working group earlier this week. So that's gonna summarize the March financial statements for the water and wastewater utilities. I'm Brandon with Carr and Associates. I work with Jarrod on these every month, getting these all compiled. And I heard someone say that he is out of town, so I'll be going over this report over here for you guys today. So do you guys want me to share my screen and just kind of follow through some of the numbers, or alternatively, we can just kind of, you guys can follow along on paper and I can reference those different pages, whatever works best for you guys.
If you can share the screen, that'd be great.
Okay, let's try that here. Give me just a moment.
Now I gotta give him permission.
Oh, well, unless it's a pain for Sandy.
Oh, okay, yep. Sandy, I see you're doing that.
But we can follow along, it's not.
I had it set up where people couldn't share because of other issues, so it's gonna take a while.
That's probably wise. Well, if it's gonna be too much of a pain, then we can just try to, we can follow along on the page numbers, and that should work well too.
I think I just got you in.
Okay, let's try. Oh, yeah, that's working. So, all right. So, can you guys see that? Okay, I'm gonna just kind of start scrolling through some of these pages on this report.
You want me to just screen everything?
Okay, so like I said, this is going to be from through March, so we'll look at kind of what's happened in the water and wastewater utilities for the last 3 months. This is the first quarter is completed, so you know, at this time the rate increases have been you know, they're fully in effect. If those were passed in December, I would imagine January billing and then February collection. So you know, I can see on the revenues on each of the utilities that there's been a bit of an increase compared to, you know, where it was at last year, especially in the water utility. The wastewater is a little bit different because there wasn't a different increase that was associated with the wastewater bonds last year. So I'm going to scroll down here and if you guys want to follow along on this is going to be page 2 of the report if you're looking at the bottom. So just kind of some of my first thoughts on this, just looking at that operating fund. You know, it's a bit thin, so you know, we'll take a look at what has happened you know, up until this point. There's been a bit of a decrease in the operating fund. That's going to be mainly because of just a bit of a deficit in the spending. So we'll take a look at that. Bond and interest fund and the debt service reserve fund, those look like they're you know, being funded properly. Depreciation and short-lived assets fund, there's been a bit of growth in those, likely from transfers. And then nothing to report on the long-term debt section down there. Those are paid off twice a year. So, you know, that would have been a couple months ago, and then in a couple months, we're going to see some payments on those bonds. And then the loan, there's a payment every month on that, but we go ahead and just for our reporting, we just update that year end. So that balance has decreased a bit since 2024. So if we look at page 3 of the report, this is going to be the cash financial statement. Some of my thoughts here are, you know, I think it's good to keep in mind that you know, water and wastewater revenues are a bit seasonal because of usage. You know, water and you know, there's going to be more water usage, I would imagine, in those warmer months. So whereas, you know, we're showing 23.2%, about 23% of metered sales on our target. It's 2% off. But like I said, you know, that I would expect, you know, to have a bit of a bump in revenues in those later months, so that you know, it kind of all should kind of ebb and flow by the end of the year. So, you know, 25% would be kind of the target as percentage of the budget, since we're 3 months into the year. So metered sales, you know, is off by 2%, but we can see there's been a bit of an increase from last year, and that's going to be due to the rate increase. You know, this 2 or 3% that we applied there. So you can see that. And then just kind of looking at those operating disbursements, purchase water is a bit under. You know, if you know, as I said with the metered sales, you know, we'll probably buy more in those warmer months as well. You're using more, so you know, we'll just kind of see how that turns out here in the next couple quarters. That we're, you know, Jarrod and I were on that budget. We were kind of going back and forth on that 650,000. So you know, I could possibly see it being a bit more, but you know, we'll just have to see. But there definitely has been more purchases, costs anyway, from 24 to 25. There's been a bit of an increase there. I'm not sure if that's because there was an increase from the supplier, or if they're, you know, buying a bit more. Materials, supplies, and repairs was the one that kind of stuck out to me the most. You know, at 66% of the allocated amount. I did look through some of the detail on for the first 3 months, and nothing jumped out at me that kind of seemed like it could possibly be a capital expense. A lot of the expenses, you know, when I'll do an expense analysis, I'll typically look for larger amounts, or, you know, things that might seem to be a capital expense. But just kind of scrolling through these on the other screen, the largest expense I saw was about $2,700 out of the materials and supplies. So, that's one that we're going to keep an eye on here in the next coming months to see, maybe there just was a bit more of purchases in March compared to, previous months. So, but
Can I say something?
yes, go
Um,
ahead.
I think it stayed the same from what it was last month. I know I haven't, and I looked in at utility and had them check on how many parts I'd purchased or the amount, and it was about 43,000 in the first months, which was just parts and material
Yeah,
water system. So I reduced any spending last month or this previous month and plan on probably not even having to spend anything on parts. We're pretty well stocked up.
sure.
So I think we might maintain that for a couple more months even.
Yeah,
Unless something
okay. Well, that's good to know because, yeah, like I said, that, 51,000, and there's some other lines in there as well. The the detail is on pages 4 and 5, so you can kind of see some of those different pages, or I'm sorry, on page 4 and 5, there's different categories that we kind of plug into that materials and supplies, but there is a line item, materials and supplies, that was spent about $42,000. So, but that's good to know though. So, we would expect that, if that number doesn't jump up so much here in the next few months, that'll kind of ebb and flow. Insurance, I'm sure Jared's touched on this before, but, that's kind of an expense that you might get that once a year, or there might be like a supplemental insurance payment later in the year. But for the most part, you're going to be paying most of that at the beginning of the year. So, and we had plugged some inflation to the insurance, from last year's budget. So overall, I think the water utility, I think that once we can kind of get maybe those metered sales in those warmer months to, kind of start to come in, some of these line items that were, we kind of spent a lot at the beginning of the year, maybe not so much in those future year in future months, then, hopefully we'll start to see that, percentage start to be closer to the target of, each month as we move forward. Below the line here, that would be your non-operating disbursements. There's been a bit of capital additions, but nothing that seems, too outlandish, from an expense perspective. And it looks like we had recommended to the clerk's office, at the beginning of the year is working well, those transfers, and, everything looks to be booked accordingly, kind of from our recommendations. So we do appreciate that as we continue to compile these reports. So those are my comments on the water utility. Again, pages 4 and 5, I'll scroll through these quickly. That's where we can kind of see some of those different lines. If anyone wanted to dig into those a bit more, we certainly can. I do have each of these line items, the detailed expenses on a different screen. So if we wanted to kind of look into some of these a bit more, we can. So are there any questions on the water utility at this point?
Sandy, you started to ask something.
Well, it was more of a comment because
Sure.
now Ryan has that water meter tech. I think more things are getting addressed and fixed.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that's probably another reason why that
There's
has
gonna be a
gone up.
lot of things that he's writing work orders and needle pits are getting fixed, that needed fixed. Yokes are being changed out that should have been changed out years ago with new check valves. So, I mean, he's finding a lot of stuff out there for us.
Do we need to talk about, the meter purchase at this point, rather wrong budget, or do you want to wait? 'Cause you're talking about-
We can.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it while we're looking at this.
There's one we have the older meters, T10s that we're using right now. We're about out. We have 3 boxes left. And so we need to start purchasing more meters to put on the shelf. So the new meter is a Mach 10 meter, which is a lot more sensitive and is actually what everybody's going to. this old and new, like, if you guys wanna reference that, the accuracy of these compared to these bin. Yeah, the Mach 10s, you're reading it, more of the 16th of the.
Yeah, you're way down in the low flow range because the design of the meter is there's no moving parts in it. So if you blow through that one, it kind of flutters. There's a chamber.
Yeah,
This one's just a tube.
straight through, nothing.
So it is battery generated, but it's a 20-year accuracy revenue, and guarantee and warranty. And that coincides with the battery because it's all integrated in one unit, as you can see. It samples water 4 times a second. Since there's no moving parts, there is no degradation on low flow, and it has the same high flow tendencies. So you're not losing anything. All you are is gaining long-term revenue to where you kind of sit it and forget it. There are tools in your existing 360 software to monitor these things that are built around detecting any drop in revenue, drop in battery, things like that, so that you can monitor them. It'll warn you at year 18 and 19 that it's getting to the end of its warranted life. Come fetch it. But the impact that these have had over the past 5 years as more and more people have used them, really significant, because your question of when does the meter lose enough revenue on its accuracy to be replaced, and the rule is check it after 10 years. 10 years go by, or the notes aren't in there to know how old the meter is. You just make a lot of assumptions, and these meters take that away.
So, and I guess the reason I'm bringing it up here is I just want an idea of and we can talk more about the details of everything, but from a budgetary standpoint, since we've got, I'm on the call, how much are these gonna cost and which budget pile are we gonna pull them out of? Just so that I assume this isn't something that comes out of.
I would suggest it come out of the depreciation new equipment fund.
I agree with that. The meters are typically depreciated items. So we've included an allowance in the rates that, that kind of would go towards that allowance of meters. Is there kind of an idea of how much the utility is planning to spend, or I guess the utilities, I'm guessing they share those expenses on the meters? Is there kind of an estimate of as to how many meters and the cost? And we could take a look at that to see if kind of moving forward here for the next few months in 2025, if there's going to be some more replacement that's going to kind of take out.
Are these radio read or cell phone? That one, you can go either direction. That one's radio. This one's radio, okay. It's the same radio you guys currently have, and they come in direct shipments of 100 instead of 144 due to how they're packaged and cost. So a direct shipment from Neptune, I put on that quote, is 100 quantity.
Right. If you buy them individually, they're $468.
Significantly higher off our shelf at the moment. They're the correct force.
If you buy the 100, you're paying $100 less. It's $368 per meter. So you're saving $10,000 over the purchase of 100 right off the bat. And I did ask Brian about a blanket ordering it, and they didn't really. I forget what else he said about that.
Okay. How long will 100 last?
He was talking about maybe payments over a couple months.
Okay.
Possibly too.
Okay.
That's what he.
So then how long will it take you to go through us?
Oh, well, it'd probably take a couple of years. I'd say 2 years with replacing the ones that are going bad.
So roughly $37,000 ish to order 100 of them, and that'll last us a couple of years. And the question is that coming out of the depreciation budget, and are we okay with those numbers? Okay.
On the meters that we would have in inventory or stock, how much time of those do we have left?
Well, they're probably reaching their limit. I believe they were 10 years on the T10s.
I'm out. What I'm saying is, I think what I heard is we're talking about buying 100, and we use 50 a year. And so the 100 that we're buying 2 years worth of use, 1 a week. I guess so I'm saying on how many do we have in stock? Do we have 3 months in, do you have 30 in stock now? Do you have, are you all out?
I've got 3 boxes left, there's 6 in each box.
18.
Okay. So you have 18 weeks
Yeah.
for fun. 1 week.
With the meter tech, I've seen them going a little bit faster.
Okay, you're low.
He's been finding the issues and,
So it's not something we have, it's not an immediate crisis, it's not a crisis, but it's something we need to do.
that's why we're planning right now.
And then I guess my question, why I interrupted the years, I just wanted to make sure that within our budget, is this okay within our existing budget, this $37,000? If we decided.
Let me take a look at that. I had the budget pulled up here for the water utility, so here, let me just kind of clean this up a bit so it's a bit easier to follow along.
Sorry.
So,
You're right.
32,000.
I read some numbers together just last night, so that's the lowest we can get for 100. Okay.
so that was 100 meters, and then what? I'm sorry, was that 368 per meter?
32,000 for 100.
Okay, so 32,000. Essentially, it would kind of come out of here. You know, you guys have already spent 32. I think it was for in the water utility. And is that, I guess, would that be split 50-50 between water and sewer? Or is that just all going to come out of water? Because I guess, you know, wastewater, they benefit from the meter as well, from the billing side.
Yeah.
Because the sewer rate gets,
Calculated out of the water.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably split that if it makes sense.
I think it would be, you know, better on the utilities to split that up some way.
Seems to be nodding and splitting it would be a good idea. So. If we can do that. it would-
Because the water utility has about a $96,000 allowance for depreciation for the 2025 budget, and then let me just run over to wastewater real quick. So it's 142,000. It's a bit more because the wastewater utility has outstanding bonds, so you kind of have to have a bit more of a depreciation allowance to have the maintain the correct coverage on the bonds. So, you know, with that being said, you know, I think that, you know, splitting that purchase somehow. But I do think that, you know, if it was 16,000 and 16,000, you know, that would kind of come right out of those two numbers that are included in the budget. You know, the depreciation allowance it's you know, just kind of more of a, on the wastewater side, it's more of a calculation based on the coverage that's needed. Whereas in the water utility, it was more just kind of seeing, you know, where the rates are. And it was, you know, we kind of did, Jarrod and I, you know, we kind of filled in the blanks. We know what the budget's going to be. We know what the outstanding bonds payment is going to be, the lease payment on the boom truck, you can see that. And then kind of just based on what you guys had spent in previous years, and a calculation based on what the rates were going to end up being. That's kind of the number we came up with. It seemed to be reasonable, made the most sense. So I think that, you know, there definitely is benefit to purchase those in bulk. If you look on those utility reports that you have, you know, we do have an allowance for depreciation, but also the depreciation fund has $115,813 in the water utility. In the wastewater utility, that amount is about 63,000. So, you know, from a utility budgeting perspective, you know, you do your best to try and keep it within the budget, but that's what the cash balance is there for. I know that depreciation fund, I know for sure in the water utility, I'd have to look back in the wastewater utility, that, you know, for a long time that cash was in the bank just sitting there, and it wasn't necessarily spent on anything. And that's the purpose of a depreciation fund. You know, you build it up over time, and then there's certain times where it's, you know, you're making an investment in the utility, such as the meters. And it sounds like, you know, two years of meters, but that's good. Those meters are going to last a long time. And there's also going to be some benefits on some efficiencies on the metering side with the new meters that's going to help on the revenues. So, that was a really long-winded answer for yes, you should buy them at a depreciation.
All right, well, I think they're on the agenda for some further discussion here in a second. I just wanted to make sure we had the money.
Yeah.
I just
Sorry to
have
interrupt.
one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since there's no moving parts in this, what is actually tracking the flow?
Sure, it's ultrasonic technology, so it's transit time, so there's two transducers. It sends a signal through the cavity of the pipe, of the water meter, and 4 times a second it goes down, back, and that mathematical equation from the time it takes to go from one end to the other, based on the flow going through and the volume, that accumulates the usage. Static metering for that style of technologies in 3 or 4 different brands, including ours, and there's mag meters, which use magnetic field technology to measure water or non-potable water. Similar concept, but a little more susceptible to issues in the long run. The sonic technology is kind of the proven long-term one. So quite frankly, it's fancy math.
So then the real failures, the batteries die in 20 years and they have to be replaced.
No, the ultrasonic technology has been used for decades. Larger diameter meters, so we're seeing it in small meters. Exciting, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, let's finish up the budget report and then we'll come back to the meters are back on the agenda here in a second. I kind of got excited and jumped the gun on the budget.
Okay, can I add something to the budget?
Absolutely.
We now have to start paying state tax on dyed fuel for the fuel we buy from the highway department.
Okay.
So that just started, so that has not been budgeted in. So we needed to let Brandon and Jarrod know that needs. It was $412.21 this month.
Okay, so that's gonna be $412 for, I guess, the next 9 months.
What is dyed fuel?
It's diesel, but it's how they put that, how to track it, because it's
You
bus.
have track, you have farmers that use.
Yeah.
Off-road
It has a die.
Red diesel is now taxed at state law.
And that's the tax amount?
Yes,
It's not for roads up here.
Farmer,
you're not on the road.
Never heard of it referred to as dyed diesel.
yes, that's what it's called. We had to get licensed for it, and all diesel vehicles has to have that license in it, which they do.
And we don't get an exception as a municipality.
The road.
No, and so this just
But
started.
those two started?
Okay, it happened before, this is the first we've been made aware of it, so.
Thank you.
Just full.
All right, and keep going on our budget report.
Yep, yeah, and that's, I appreciate knowing that info. We'll keep an eye on those expenses, but I did just do a quick calculation and it's gonna be depending on whether that's coming out of water or wastewater, that's gonna be, maybe 1.5% of the budget. So, fortunately, I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue, but any changes, in your spending, we do always appreciate knowing that information, because the more information we have, the better we can make this budget for you guys. So thank you for that. So if there weren't any other questions on water, I've got the wastewater balance sheet pulled up here, and this is going to be on page 8 of your report that you have in your hand. So just kind of taking a look at some of these line items, your utility plant and service, that's going to be the your gross capital assets, gross meaning we do not apply depreciation to this number, but that's increasing from the end of the year, and that's because of the draws on the bonds that closed last year. So you guys have spent up until this point about, oh, almost $2 million in capital outlays on the wastewater utility, but most of that was offset by the draws on the bonds from last year. And then looking at that operating fund, there has been a bit of a decrease in 2020, in 2025 up until this point, from 475 to 318. I think a lot of that is because we've seen a lot of expenses kind of front loaded in the year. Insurance is one of them, and we'll talk about this. Insurance and the transportation, that line item seems to be high, but it was also high last year around this time. And then sludge removal, I'm sure you guys talked about that last month with Jarrod. I'm not sure what the discussion was, but it's kind of the same story this month as well. And then purchase power was another one that kind of seemed like the electricity bills were through the roof. So we'll take a look in the next page here, but just kind of wanted to give you a bit of context on that operating fund. It is important to note on the operating fund that the minimum requirement for the outstanding bonds is 2 months of operating expenses, which I've calculated as for the wastewater utility close to about 185,000. So, that operating fund is still in I would say a good cash position. But there just has been a bit of a decrease from the year end. So just want to keep that in mind. At the bottom there, you can see your long-term debt. That's what's outstanding on those bonds. So just that you will be making transfers every month on those, and then paying the principal only on those wastewater bonds, which is great, that there's no interest on those. So here's page 9, similar to water. We'll just kind of look at the operating receipts and disbursements here, these two sections, and then take a look at the non-operating, which is below the line there, that we can't see on our screen yet. But I would say similar situation to water on the revenues. Behind, and I say behind just comparing to 3 months of the year is 25% of the year done. I would expect there to be a bump in the metered sales for wastewater as well, particularly if there's new meters coming in. That's certainly going to help on the revenue side. So just kind of want to keep that in mind. And then a few of those line items that I mentioned that we want to keep an eye on is the purchase power. Specifically, I could see on that one that the sewage electricity bill was 22,000 at this point last year, and this year it's 43,000. So I'm not entirely sure what would have caused such a major increase in the electricity bill, but just wanted to kind of point that out. That purchase power and utilities, at 34.9% of the budget. Sludge removal, seems like there was a lot of sludge removal last month, and then I can't tell whether or not, I don't have the February month report in front of me, but what that number was last month. But I do recall that it was much higher, than we would have anticipated. And then just kind of some other lines, the transportation is at 51.6%, but again, we calculated the 22,000 based on what had happened last year, and last year was right around that same point. Insurance, again, same situation. We're at 78.8%, but the large majority of that has already been spent. So 34%, it seems like, kind of some of those lines that I mentioned are kind of causing this decrease in the cash. I do think it's important to note, though, that your net operating receipts here, about the same level as last year. So, where we've seen an increase in revenues, we've also seen an increase in expenses, and those have kind of leveled out. And last year, the utility did bounce back, ended up having total cash of almost 1.1 million last year. So if you just kind of look down at the bottom here, you can see, or I'm sorry, at the end of the year it was actually 1.2 million. So there, it was kind of a similar situation last year around Q1 on the operating side. And then non-operating receipts and disbursements this is going to show the principal and interest payments and the capital additions and things of that nature. You can kind of see the bond proceeds received about 1.8 million in 2025, and most of that has been spent out Whatever is above and beyond that would just be kind of coming out of the depreciation fund. The loan payment on the boom truck is in there. So, and then the principal payment, fortunately, there's no interest remaining on those bonds, which is great. So, those are some of my comments on the wastewater utility. Does anyone have any questions or comments or other observations?
Was the sludge gonna be moved into, be paid out of the project?
No, we looked at that.
Okay.
And Nathan will talk a little bit more about the sludge removal, but it seems like we do have contingency. We're running into a lot of laterals. I'll let him talk about that. But on the sludge, it has slowed down. It was 66,000 in February, so we've only gained another 11,000 in March. Probably going to slow down even further. In a couple months.
We might see a spike.
You might see a spike.
From this storm.
Yeah.
I know we had to clarify the filled up before the storm actually. And we had to get rid of the sludge out of it, which was a blessing. I mean, it brought our solids way down. And it was 22 loads of sludge we had to haul off, which brings our PSS out in aeration really low. So I shouldn't have to have any septic hauling for at least a couple more weeks.
In discussions with the contractor, we expect that the digester complex will be ready to start filling end of June. And once we start filling that digester complex, it will likely take, honestly, 5 to 7 months to fill it up and get it to the point where we will haul sludge in a different form. So I guess I tell you that to tell you that likely there will be no sludge hauling costs July through December of this year.
All right.
Yes. Okay. And we have 2 tanks. I mean, there's 4, but we have 2.
Right.
We're double.
Yes.
Okay.
You thought,
So we can fill the 1 tank if we want to start using the both for the same time.
anything else on the budget?
I don't think I have any other comments. Those different line items are, we'll just want to keep an eye on those for sure. But as far as the wastewater utility goes, for any depreciated items, there's a bit of cash that can be used there. I know there's monthly transfers that are being made, and there has been a decrease in the operating fund, but it's important to note that we're still I'd say about 5 months of operating costs in there, whereas 2 months is the minimum. So I do think that that's a good cash position to be in still, despite the decrease that you can see on page 8. But I don't have any other comments on that. If you want to kind of look at some of that detailed, what kind of goes into each of those lines, we can see, that's on pages 10 and 11 for the wastewater utility, and then building up towards that next payment in July for the wastewater bonds. So then I can see those on page 12 and 13, which seem like infinity, till 2059. So
Before we keep going, is there anything that I keep skipping you every category?
No, that's okay. I'll just keep interrupting you in every category.
That's fine. Jim, did you have anything else on this? Nathan, are you good?
We're good.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
you're welcome. I know I do see on the monthly reports on the agenda as well. If you guys want me to make any comments on water improvement rate study, I know that's been on the agenda for a couple months. Then so just wanted to see if you guys had any comments on that before I log off.
No, I think we're good for now.
Okay. All right. Well, appreciate everyone, and might be Jarrod or myself next month, but appreciate you guys having me on here today to discuss this with you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
All right, operations, MRO report, water loss. So.
Well, the plant survived the storm, and it did really well with the sludge hauling removal. It allowed us to weather through all of that. We didn't lose any solids. Stayed within the confines of the plant, and that was good. We are down on at Washington Street, but that's been sent off for repair or to see how much it would cost. I have a 7.5 horse pump down at the plant. I might be able to put it in there to let it help us get through the next couple months until the new lift stations are fired up. The water loss is,
Before we move on from the plant, yeah. You got these bypass reports in the,
yes, I'm sorry. Those are for the manholes, that surcharge. And I reported the item.
so for the board's benefit, you'll note there's 2 bypass reports. One of those reports is basically for the Brown County Inn lift station, the area that it serves. The other one is for the Washington Street lift station, the area and gravity system in which it serves. A positive note here, the Washington Street lift station bypassed or overflowed only because there was an electrical issue at the lift station.
Right, the manhole.
And we had one pump down. And I point all this out to say that all the lining work on the lines and the laterals, this is the proof of the pudding. We had how many inches of rain over that many days?
Right.
One pump was able to keep up.
And before, I would get a high level alert, and I didn't get a high level alert from that lift station.
Right. Prior to this project, we would have a bypass out of Washington Street lift station almost every time we got
Yeah,
2 inches of rain or more.
There would actually be several manholes surcharging, not just the one.
I just want to bring that to your attention. All the lining work from this project.
And I've seen a reduction in the flow a lot quicker this last, the last rain. Yesterday I came in, we're already down to 0.30. Yep.
Kudos to everyone for keeping this project moving.
I did want to bring up, we were talking a lot about the meter tech. And I was one, he's got his 90-day probation, yes, and his expectations of him were underestimated. He is performing and cleaning tasks, picked up on zip till, writing work orders for Jarrod and them to repair meter pits, this ability to operate a backhoe. He aids in actually fixing water leaks when it is necessary, that his help is needed. So I was wanting to give him a $1 increase, which it wasn't put into his top pay was $23 an hour. So I let the ball drop on that. I should have made it a little higher. At the time, we were talking about their pay, his pay scale anyway. So I'm asking to see if we can't get it bumped up to at least $24 an hour.
Are we, budget wise, is that for this anywhere?
I haven't checked on that. I don't think it would have though.
Is it in the salary ordinance that it can go that high?
No, that's the thing. That's why I have to
Okay, so
bring
they
it
would
up.
have to make a recommendation to the town council.
From the council.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we're gonna,
a dollar an hour, 2,000 hours a year,
Yeah.
$2,000.
Less than that, it's more for years.
I guess my question is, we need to make a recommendation to council to make a new ordinance. Is,
To amend.
To amend the salary ordinance.
right, but is the $24 target enough or does we need to amend it so there's enough cushion for a future raise, or I don't know how we normally do that. I mean, my question is, do we amend it to $26, so he's got room for a couple of more raises before we have to come back, or?
But I think that I'd have to pull the salary ordinance up, but I think it's per type of worker.
Mhm.
So he's only talking about the meter tech. So it wouldn't affect any of the other guys if he were to come back and ask for an increase. We would have to then change a different item in that salary. Does that make sense?
That does, but I guess my question is, do we request the meter tech range to go to 26?
If your budget can support it.
So that he can adjust him, and yeah, and I'm not sure what the budget number is. So,
If you do make a recommendation to the council, say for 24, and then 3 or 4 months later, you go, gosh, no, we want it 25, you can make that recommendation again.
Okay.
And the ordinance will be amended by the end of the year, so Brenda will take all of these under consideration when we do that amendment. So the council won't actually have to pass an ordinance that day when they make that change, is what I'm trying to say.
But he would be able to get the raise.
He would be able to get the raise, and then at the end of the year, Brenda looks and says, oh, this job position was eliminated and it was changed to this name, and then, so we go through and make all those adjustments for the whole year.
And his 90 days was up on March 20th, so take effect March 21st. If the board agrees with the dollar raise, it would go retroactive back to the 21st.
So there's no issue then, Sandy, if we just do the amend for the $1 raise, and then 3 months from now, we have to do it again, it's fine.
Correct.
Would anyone like to make a motion to recommend to town council to amend the ordinance to allow for $24 an hour rate for a year?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion that we do whatever Robert says.
No, something. I won't sleep at night.
All right, what else do we have? Water loss, you mentioned it, was a.
Yeah, it wasn't all that great. I mean, we're creeping back up, but I think it's also because the water consumption down. And, we have been fixing leaks, finding little ones here and there. I've seen more little leaks than I have ever, and they're just popping up here and there. They're on one on Wells Drive right now where the strap on the back rotted. And it's barely holding on, so they're replacing it now on Wells Drive.
The key takeaway that I have is if you look under the purchase column, 15, 13, 13, 3 purchase columns are all the same. If you think about it, you have a system that's under pressure and we're leaking water. But as Robin said, on the consumption side, we've gone from monthly, we've gone from 10 to 7 to 6. So because the system is active, pressurized all the time, 24/7. So over 30 days, you leak what you leak. But since we didn't sell much water, then the leak ratio got higher, I think is what he was trying to say. We actually used less water for March than we did for January. But the percentage went up because we didn't sell much water.
Right, correct.
Yeah, we basically have a minimum water we're going to use, whether
We're going to use the same water, yeah, with the system that we have.
Yeah.
So selling more water is a good thing.
I'll speak for me, hopefully the board agrees, but y'all did a great job with all the floods and everything that's come through the last month, so we really absolutely appreciate it. So I think everybody had water, everybody sewer worked, and I think everybody's, you guys did a great job, so we really appreciate it.
We don't want
Pass
to
it
water
on to
on
the guys.
Yeah, please pass it on to the guy. Let him know how much we appreciate it. All right, wastewater, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Sure.
I forgot about this one. The adjustments that you get every month. Could you decide a cutoff date when they have to be in here, because we get them straggling again, and you won't probably get all of them until the day of. You want them, they have to be in the week before the meeting.
What's the cutoff for something to get on the agenda?
Well, that's what we were talking about, because like, I'll put stuff in the Google Drive and you might look at it, and then the next day we'll get something else, and I'm like, So I would just like a strict cutoff date so that you all know, okay, well, if it's in there on that Friday, then that was the last one. You know what I'm saying?
Is that what it is for council? Is it the Friday before?
Typically, I mean, you guys make the decision, and whatever it is, then we'll just go by it.
And then any adjustment that comes in after the cutoff will go to the next month.
I'm fine with the Friday before. I mean, I think all the committees and councils have some cutoffs, so sure. I don't, if a week before seems reasonable and isn't against, so probably would want to just double check to make sure there's no requirement, but.
There isn't.
All right, then
That's pretty typical.
I'm good with a week if somebody wants to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
So we're gonna say the cutoff for adjustments and for submissions to the agenda is 1 week prior.
To the meeting.
Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. And I think I'm done. I know, but.
Interrupt me. Wastewater rehabilitation project. Let's go some reps.
Well, last month was a pretty productive month for Michelin Stark. The Salt Creek lift station structures are set. Piping installation has begun, and the force main from the lift station to the wastewater treatment plant has been connected to the Salt Creek lift station itself. Miscellaneous metal work continues to progress there as well. For the collection system itself, the laterals continue to be surveyed in line. Additionally, the manhole rehabilitation subcontractor has mobilized and begun prep work of the manholes. Between the lining, the lateral lining, I should say, and the manhole lining, probably gonna expect work to progress April, May, June, and into July, I would say, as we work through access and damaged laterals. I might get back to the damaged laterals after the wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant work progressed with piping and installation of pumps and chemical tanks, etc. At the site. The flooding sort of hampered about a week's worth of work there. There was a small amount of damage sustained by the contractor as a result of the floods. The basement got wet. The contractor is working through all of that on his end, but work's progressing nicely. In the next month or so, I would expect to see work for the generator pad specifically to be completed, and we'll start seeing more hand rub and electrical work starting to install pumps being installed in the wastewater treatment plant lift station. What we would look for. Circling back to the laterals, as the subcontractor has done their pre-televising inspection, they've identified a larger number of laterals that require excavation to repair. They're not lineable, I guess I will say, than what we had estimated in the bidding documents. So that's where we're working with the contractor to see if we can perhaps negotiate a lower bid price for a high quantity of work.
How far over does it look like we're gonna go?
Well, we had a dozen in the bid documents, and at the moment, we're up to 30.
A dozen,
Rough
how
numbers
much?
were,
2,000 each,
I believe it was 20,000 each,
2 times 20, or I'm sorry,
30 times 20.
12 times 20 was $250,000.
Yeah, and the base bid documents, and it looks like we may have 30. To work through there, so we're working through it with the contractor.
It seems like, in my own head, if one of the laterals was in the dirt on the edge of the road, and it was on ours drive, somewhere out remotely, that it's pretty easy to dig it up and fix that one, and so that has a $5,000 price
Exactly.
for fun.
Exactly.
But oops, if it's a lateral that's down next to Miller's Drugstore in the middle of the state highway, and
Yes.
there's sidewalks and stuff like that involved, then all of a sudden, oops, it's not, even 20 won't cover it. And so it seems like if you had 12, which was the guess, and they guessed something, it seems like you're right. Seems like what a fellow would do would, once they told you, here are the 30 that we have, then you would try to figure out exactly what
We
the
can more,
package price would be, I think is what you said.
Or if you had a communication line on the top of it.
for communication line or not, we can more accurately scope the level of effort on the contractor side. When we know exactly what they're on.
When they put out the bid documents, they have to put something in.
sure.
You can guess, and so they guess something and they put in another. And so 4 laterals, we have 12 at 20, we have 240,000. We also have the other bids that the other bidders had. So you have something else to look at, but now it's like, you're right. It seems like the prudent thing to do would be that once they had all the information, make a specific proposal as a singular change order for doing that.
And
Which removed the risk and exposure from them.
Right.
The good news for them is now they know what they're dealing with and they can actually figure out the real number. And the good thing for us is we didn't know exactly what we were going to get into, and so we'll know exactly what we need to do. And you got a consultant that's telling you, here's what the fair price is for that. I think is what you're saying, right?
and fortunately, we have a very good contractor who's willing to work with.
I'm on board with that. Sounds like they know what they're doing.
And I assume the contingency is, we have enough contingency to deal with this.
Well, I mean, depends on how much we can negotiate, but yes,
Okay.
we have not dipped into contingency yet.
30 times 20 would be 600 for fun. 30 times 20 would be,
For fun.
yeah, 30 times 20 would be 600,000. We had 240, so it's not a $20,000 or $50,000 change order. It's a big number. Right. And the only other, it would never make sense to go get the subcontractor to do that. As far as Mitchell Stark's concerned, we're only required to do 12.
Correct.
So we could ask them to do the worst ones for the 20 each, and then on the 20 that we have left, you could go do a separate.
That's
But
an
it would
option.
never but it wouldn't necessarily ever make sense to go do work directly with the sub, would it?
No, because
It has to have it under the same builder's risk umbrella, general liability, blah, 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 blah. And the sub may be good at doing good at the lateral, but they're not good at doing sidewalk repairs. And blah, blah, blah.
Whereas Mitchell and Stark can do all. So something you'll see noticeably in the community, beginning the latter part of April is that Washington Street gravity line reroute around the AT&T vault. That work is supposed to begin latter part of April as the asphalt plants reopen.
April 21st.
April, do you have, okay. You have an
That's
actual-
the
Loop on that.
Well,
Sandy?
April 21st is when Mitchell and Stark came in and said they were gonna start the work.
And with that, there will be road closures.
Yeah, we're gonna do East Washington first up to Van Buren, then
Yeah. East
Close
Washington
Van
from
Buren.
Jefferson to Van Buren.
do that
on
work, and
21st of
then
April.
go to West Washington.
And they expect to
I
have,
thought it was opposite. He told me they're starting,
The 21st, they're gonna do East, I'm sorry, West Washington.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
then do Van Buren, from across, and then East Washington.
so that,
they're gonna start at the alley and move their way east towards Van Buren. And they expect it to take at least a week for the work to be completed.
so,
And Sandy's in the loop and and they're helping coordinate.
Yeah,
Everybody's
Phyllis.
on top.
Phyllis is in the loop with permitting for dot road closure.
so that road's just gonna be closed. No, I mean, it is what it is.
Happy, but-
Well, they're gonna be closing that road and I know how
Is there
people
anything
are.
we need?
Well,
Is
when
there
they're
anything I can
doing
do
the
or-
Washington Street sides, they won't necessarily be closing it. They may have to change a lane, you know.
Right, Washington Street's the road closure.
Yes,
Right.
that will be closed.
That's what I was
Van
talking
Buren
about.
is lane shifts, and there will be one day of
Closure.
closure of Van Buren.
Well, that'll all be on down Johnson.
And and the fire department knows and Sandy knows.
We can get,
Sandy,
I'll send an
everybody knows.
email out to the Sheriff's
And then-
Department, Fire, Chad.
Because we'll need to know the exact day. that
Right,
they'll
I know,
start.
and I talked to Brad and he said,
Yeah,
shoot for the 21st.
right. It's a little bit of a moving target.
All right, anything else?
Not on mine, no.
Okay. Great, thanks. Looks like everything's, we're not too far over budget, we're not too far behind, like, hey, right? So,
We're tracking it very closely.
yes, thank you very much. All right, old business, utility supply. So we have some more discussion about the meters, or we've got 10 recommendations and then the quote from the cell meters. I know we talked about it a little bit, so. Come on. Again.
Yeah, that's no problem. Well, I've been with utility supply, Sandy and I've been swapping emails for the past few months and through going to Neptune school, vacation, that kind of stuff. This is the first time we're back on the agenda. Last time I was here, we were asked to run a new study that would show how to bring every meter to call into the system on a daily basis, an hourly basis. So obviously we put the antenna here at Town Hall, covers a big chunk of town. We're over 60% covered with that. The study that I sent over, kind of a group email there, had 2 more locations that if you were to add 2 more collectors, that would bring the total up to a little, between maybe leaving around 300, 350 meters left that aren't covered, that are in the far stretches of your system. Knowing that, Neptune has the cellular register option to fill that in. And, oh, look, you guys do have the study. Perfect. You get it. I do not know. It's okay. You can look at it. I'm not sure where those 2 fine locations, where they actually are in your system. The map is pretty small, but the idea would be to travel out there to the rough area where Neptune said, hey, go here, look for something in this area that could be used. We like existing assets or height of the structure to use. That way we don't have to construct anything in the middle of nowhere. But the idea being they wanted to mix our existing radios that you do have with fixed collectors and then fill in the rest of your system with individual collectors, i.e. cellular transmitters on meters, to then bring in everybody, right? Because putting collectors all throughout the woods makes no sense. So by design, what we were asked to do is put together an option for you guys. So that's what I did in the, Neptune did in the study. You can see the existing location here says City Hall, and they have what they call fines, and there's 2 fines. One. I think your paper's-
Which one are you on?
So Robin made it, she said he did look at it. You see there's
The element.
there's 2 fines out there that, based on their topography coverage and their design, here it is. That's exactly what they would recommend if you want to deploy them. You see one down here to the southeast and one up. It's like Park View. Yeah, you guys probably know these areas better than I do. I just,
Yeah, southeast would be Parkview, northwest would be, ooh, Robbie, you might help me out on that. North of Pineview.
Al's Garage area.
Yeah, it's kind of east of Dallas Garage a little bit. Yeah.
And if, in what they do with these studies is if you say, hey, this fine location you guys had, I actually found an asset, here's the height, here's the exact location. They put that on the map, adjust the coverage and give you new numbers back based on that. And if they're within 100 feet, that's nothing. But if they're about a half mile away, then it's worth saying, hey, based on your study, we found this location, but we got to go over here. What would it look like? They'll just rerun the study with your exact locations. It's no big deal. And that would paint the picture of what it would look like if you're to add those assets to your system. So they made some assumptions, right? So that if you put up these two, they would cover X, and then that would leave, around 300, 350 units left that aren't being covered, and you can pretty well see where they're at. You've got a big stretch of coverage out this way and up this way. Those aren't traditional radios right now, so you drive by and collect them, they can stay that way forever. If you said, no, if we have access to hourly data for all these customers, when they call in and that customer is outside of your coverage area, it's really unfortunate because as soon as you start tying up your customer service and meter tech duties revolving around daily reads coming in, then you have a quarter of your population that aren't that way. It's kind of nice to have them all under one platform. So the timing for your interest in this is good because Neptune has officially released I call the retrofit. So this is your traditional radio. They now have a same radio, but instead of just a transmitter, they have a cell transmitter built inside of it. So if you were to say, hey, the meter's fine, I don't need to replace the whole thing, I'll just go pop my old radio off, put the new one on. This would call directly into Neptune 360 on its own accord. In the event it doesn't catch a carrier, it reverts back to the standard radio. So come the 14th, 15th, when we load to read meters, file goes in, exchanges, hey, we got 82 missed meters. And if, let's say, some of those are cellular, that's okay. You just drive by and pick them up like you do now. So it has both technologies in it, but its primary home handshake is going to be cellular. They have changed their cellular right now. You can still order a specific carrier. So Neptune's study shows on page 2 or 3 that, hey, there's FirstNet, there's Verizon. But when we go to order these, they're going to have what's called the eSIM, which means it has 4 carriers built in. So you don't have to choose. It chooses its best course home. So as soon as this gets installed, we run a magnet over the top. It turns on and says, hey, there's Verizon, I'm good with you, or AT&T or T-Mobile, and so on, or you have cellular. So depending on what it finds, it'll grab that connection and hold on to it. That connection goes away after 24 hours. It'll start transmitting its normal radio for collection and billing purposes, but it'll cycle through all those until it finds a new one, retain that, and if that were to go away, it'll cycle through and find another.
Is it essentially the town would have an access plan for any of those 4 networks? One plan,
The town would just pay an annual fee
right?
per meter, but the meter job has all the access plans built into it. So it's universal attention. So from a pricing standpoint, I was able to get really close because the carriers are all within $1 or $2 of each other. So what Neptune's doing is bundling them all into one, giving you one package, so we don't have to determine that he got 5 FirstNet units and 5 AT&T and 5 Verizon. They have to go to specific spots because Neptune says on the study, here's where it has to go. All that's going away. So we're sunsetting that product literally this month and moving directly to multi-carrier. But the other ones are fine. It's just Neptune study showed with Verizon that this coverage is good. We can stick Verizon only units in for years, but moving to the multi-carrier is a kind of a no-brainer. It allows you to seamlessly pop old registers on, new ones off, or order them like the Mach 10 meter that we were looking at earlier. That can be built in with the multi-carrier option too. So either one can be introduced, but we do need to know that going into the ordering process, which I envision would come down the line later on once we established a good plan to do that.
And some of the Mach 10 also, like, there's a feature that can be, where it can show you the pressure in that area.
Yeah, let me grab that.
On certain You know, I wouldn't want to do it to every one of them, you wouldn't have to, but picking strategic areas, the meter would be able to show us the pressure in that area also.
So this is the Mach 10 meter without the radio on it. So it's kind of like a Lego. At Neptune, you say, hey, you want to order this with pressure inside of it, a pressure sensor? Sure. In the coming months, by this time next year, for sure, you can order with no shutoffs on it. And this wire is going to stay on there because you still need that radio transmission or the cellular transmission to call the reading in. But the real estate on here, the register was slid over so that they could add in features as you need them. So the first release right now, all of these display temperature. Not that that's crazy important, but it might be when it comes to freezing times. When connected to our cellular endpoint, that transfers right into the software and you can set up alerts so that if a meter is showing a freezing alert, you can contact and say, hey, your meter is going to freeze. That's a problem. That's a built-in all meters. All Mach 10s have them, whether you use it or not. It'll be on the display. The only way to capture that is to throw that cellular backhaul onto it because that's a nonstop handshake to the software. It's not a drive by and collect it when you need it. By design, if you want pressure or temperature, you want all the time connection because those alerts need to be frequent.
Those are we work through cellular, the radio.
Currently on the roadmap, probably in 2026, they'll start testing a fully built-in option for it all. A radio transmission, a cellular transmission. They're taking their catalog of products where you pick this one and pick this one. They all interface into one software, but they're trying to streamline that down to where you get one unit and how you activate the information is just, it's sort of sitting there ready. But currently, the only way to get temperature and pressure back hauled into the software is through the cellular connection.
And
That's a two-way device.
So you said it's like Legos, but can it be added by Robin or does it need to come from the?
We got to order it ahead of time. That's correct. So this meter itself needs to be ordered with what you want inside of it before you put it in. It's going to come with your radio on it. If you want, hey Ben, I want to, you know,
Like the 100 we just ordered.
those will have radios on them. Yeah,
But we can't upgrade those to cellular.
that is correct. You cannot. They are one way. So knowing that a majority of your system is still covered by radio, that's not an unsafe investment by any stretch. If you want to move into trying out some multi-carrier register onlys, we can throw those in the worst case scenarios for proof of concept. We can simply just order that register that's on that top of that meter, take the old one off, put the new one on, swipe it. Now it's instantly in AMI collected read because it's backhauling in through the carriers. So as a option for your long-term, I would consider that. I went ahead and put some meter pricing in for that, just so it can help justify the direction you might want to go, or maybe it's something you just want to try.
Which we've already done.
You've already done a couple of those. You got two.
Mesh meters.
Yeah, so those heavy exchange meters already have cell connection on them, and they're not in the, they're in the woods, especially the Greasy Creek ones, so that.
Yes.
I'm not too concerned about the performance. It was just a matter of Neptune's, our stand back approach was, one, it has to be a separate transmitter, and two, it wasn't multi-carrier. Now that they're integrated into the same register housing that you're used to, and it's multi-carrier, you already have antennas through the lids. It's a really simple slide-in option that doesn't necessarily impact your revenue by any stretch, but it does impact your customer service and your receiving of the reading. Until you replace the whole meter, then obviously that goes into all the benefits of the collection, the features, and it obviously helps your revenue because you're sticking a new meter in. I know there's kind of a lot in there and a lot in the package, but I did want to make sure that all our cards were out there on the table so that you guys could look at it, go through some questions, digest it, and then fine tuning this study with the precise locations and then figuring out the cost to entry, the barriers to entry of how to get a collector in that spot is yet to be determined. So on the quote I labeled gateway options, there's 2 collectors and a guesstimate of the installation on those at 15 grand a piece.
That's $80,000.
Yeah, I got the hardware and then just guessing. Now that could slide up or down, or you could, by no means is that a hardwired number. I just hate to give you guys here's a collector and then, oh, you forgot there's 30,000 over here that needs to be allocated to put them in, right? I just want to make sure that you guys had the numbers
And that's basically to add the 2 additional antennas, one at Al's and one on the south side.
Yes.
We could see if the park would entertain one where the new tank that they have.
I'm sure that, you know,
We've gone in some pretty interesting places.
Do we own property now, garage still? Like a 4 tower?
We've got water mains still running in there. Yeah, I do know that, but.
Have we looked at the Kelly Hill tanks, putting a tower there? Seeing what we grab?
No, we have, I don't think we have.
My first thought is, where does the town own property? From there,
Right.
if we put a tower there, how many meters can we grab?
yeah, I mean, I think that you're the same thing as what, how many meters is this 80,000 one garage for, so we don't have that?
Yeah, so there, I guess we'd have to look at the numbers. We were covering around 900. Is that right with the tower before this existing one here? And I think the other 2 towers take off another 500 meters-ish
Sure, total.
total between the 2. So it's not a huge grab, but if, you know, I'd have to look at the numbers. I don't have exactly in front of me, but with all 3 collectors were about 70, it says 70%. We're leaving about 20, it says 22% on the table. Now, we have an installation company that does a lot of our work for us and putting up towers. Last December, they brought up their gateway on wheels to display at our booth at AWWA in French Lick. And although it's tied up a lot of times, they have offered us an opportunity to use it. So what it is a trailer that's enclosed that has our gateway unit that's sitting in your parking lot. And they have a telescoping 30-foot tower, and it's got a battery a generator inside of it. And by design, the idea is you roll it into a spot, set it up, make sure it's secure, no one can get to it, that kind of thing. Telescope the antenna up and let it sit for a day or 2. That data would call into your software and would serve as here's what you get at this location with your real-time data, since you're already using our software. We tried this in French Lick. We put it up in the exhibit hall, pointed it to Springs Valley Water, which runs French Lick and West Baden's water system. And we were grabbing meters even inside of there at only 30 feet in the air all throughout town. So it kind of dual service, 1, proof of concept that it does work, and 2, that we showed the customer that even reads inside of an exhibit hall through a 30-foot tower was pretty significant. I say that because what I'd like to do, if we find one of these locations, given your terrain and topography and challenge to get reads, it would be really beneficial, I think, to bring that over, turn it on, and see what it does over the course of a few days. Because it'll give you your own reads back to 360, so you can see if we went from 60 to 80% coverage with that location, that's a viable spot, we should invest in it. If it doesn't, even though it's only 30 feet tall, same thing, we're really gonna be about 50 feet. If we aren't getting much at 30 feet, I don't know that we're gonna get a lot at 50 or 80. Enough to say, hey, this is worth throwing an investment at. I don't know when I can get it, but I'm happy to do that if you guys are interested to do a little trailer study, because I personally was so excited about it. I wanted our owner to buy one and build one immediately. And he's like, well, why don't you go try a few? So haven't had the opportunity yet this year. Obviously it's winter. So if you guys would like to, just have Robin or someone get with me saying, hey, this is the spot. We think it'd be great to try it. Then we can even do it in 2 spots. Maybe if we have a week with the thing, we can try them in both. I don't know.
I mean, I think that would be worth doing, if we could try it at some of the spots that we've identified, the Kelly Hill tanks within the
Yeah.
park.
Yeah, we've never been able to try our gateway stuff out before. It's always like use a study, use our best judgment, use our business sense and put it up. But in Neptune's model, but now we can, with this, we can actually try a little bit. And his sales team in Ohio and Kentucky are running like crazy with it. So I'm gonna find out when I can get it, because those guys are doing a lot of install jobs in Indiana for us. So we'll be able to have access to it soon. So I'd like to try that. It doesn't harm anything.
What
Like
is
any
the
stretch.
cost, for comparison purposes, what's the cost of the cellular meter and then the annual service associated with the cellular?
Yeah, your cellular service is gonna be between 15 and 20 per year per meter. So if you take 300 meters, worst case scenario at $20 a pop, that's your annual service charge that goes on top of your 360 fee. It should be under that, but I just they're still fine tuning the last ones, and I should see that here in the next couple of weeks at the least. But the radio, instead of Our standard radio, the radio that goes on top of the meter that is cellular, is around 300, and that's the register, that's this. So that's two parts in one. Right, so for 300, you get the register and the radio and the antenna all built in one. Separating them out and just doing the box like you have before is around $200, something like that, just for the cellular transmitter that would then get wired onto a meter. So given that you have the option to just pop registers off and put them on, you're spending about $300, which by no means is cheap, but you get 10 years of data service off of that, off those multi-carrier, and you don't have to replace the meter, you can just pop a new cellular transmitter right on there. What I could price as we move forward here is, hey, Ben, we're not gonna retrofit these, we just wanna stick a whole new meter in with the cellular on it, what's that number in standard mechanical and non-mechanical? I can get that, I just didn't have that available just yet. Because I feel like that's something that we're gonna integrate in over the next year versus tomorrow. Unless we wanted to try out some retrofits, I should be able to get those in May. So that's kind of, I broke down a lot of options within that meter quote. Obviously ignore the Mach 10 pressure, but the bottom line is that $300 line is this cellular register only.
And that's not for the Mach 10, though, right?
No, that's just for the technology, right? The metrology sitting underneath it is all.
So if we want the Mach 10 with the cellular connection, what is that gonna be?
I'm gonna have to crunch that, but if you're buying the whole thing at 320, we're probably gonna add about $100 to that to get a cellular version, because you're basically setting a meter with a radio and the registration and the warranty for and the network, right? So you're kind of setting everything in at the endpoint. So that price is gonna be up just because you have that cellular endpoint on it. So I'll be able to crunch that to help piece this puzzle together. But on the onset, I wanted to make sure we had the study, the retrofit option, and obviously the meter, the Mach 10 purchase that you guys discussed earlier.
I think what I'd like to see, I mean, I like the idea of getting the mobile trailer down there so we can try it in a few locations, and I think we can get with Nathan to figure out where those spots are. I think we need to understand for our $80,000 investment, what that's going to capture.
Yeah.
I mean, if we pick up 100 units, we just need to do the math and see whether that makes sense or not. If we pick up 80% of our collection system, that's different. And kind of the same with the cellular. I want to understand what the cost of the cellular units would be to both upgrade existing ones, but probably more for the Mach 10s. If these all need to be replaced anyway, we would probably be looking at buying Mach 10s with the cellular.
You know, with the Mach 10s, you got a 20-year life, so your money's well spent.
Yeah.
These are getting close to their end time.
So it'd be worth seeing what the real cost of the Mach 10 with cellular is and what the subscription fee is on that. And then one, compare that to what that compares to the additional antennas. And then two, we can identify some spots to try those. The antennas just don't work. 'Cause I think what we're gonna run into is a lot of the spots, you're not gonna do any cellular to work, but there are some places that would be handy. And if we could pick up, strategically put those where we want to monitor pressure in real time, it might be worth
having a pressure feature.
having the pressure
Yeah.
for us. So,
Yeah, we were just at school last month, and the discussion points on the pressure that's been tested all over the country was extremely positive.
Right.
Because you're really taking a lot more analytics into the software at that point and how you're monitoring your system. And I know we're just on the verge of being a little premature on getting all those exact costs, and so we're very close, but the results so far have been fantastic. They tested thousands of the multi-carriers down in southern Indiana and Jeffersonville, and up north of Lowell, trying to put inside set meters in northern Indiana through Indiana American Properties, right? Because they're a Neptune contract, and they're just waiting on more. They love it. It's working great.
And more of the data, like pressure readings and stuff like that, would probably also benefit the aqua water too, on their information that they get.
Yeah, we do.
SmartAqua.
Yeah,
SmartAqua.
yeah.
Sorry.
So my goal will be by the end of this month, have identified time at which we can get the trailer. If we can get that up here and done by May, that would slate us to have all the information we could possibly need by end of May, start of June. That would be my goal. And, just trying to put some realistic timeframes out there.
And I think once we identify some of those spots, if we can use existing water towers, or existing towers within. Cheaper, so I'm sure we can use spots in the park if there's anything there.
Then, two more quick notes, based on my trip down to Neptune, they're, outside of commercial meters, which are still stretching out quite a ways, 1.5 through 2 inch, or 1.5 through 6 inch are still, you know, anywhere from 3 to 6 months out. They are actively bringing those forward. So we're starting to see the largest meters down to the 2 inch meters take a month or two off their lead times. 5/8 is full production. We're within a month. So if you say, hey, I need that pallet of Mach 10s, if you want it a month from now, just we'll wait a month to place the order. So they're very quick. The large meters, just so you guys are aware, now come with test ports. So all the commercial Mach 10s will have built-in test port, no additional cost. And then registers and cellular are all very fast turnaround times. Neptune's foundry is back on very level ground with their suppliers.
The test ports, you're meaning.
Built into the meter. Yeah, so if you could do a line test without pulling the meter or having, you know, there's actually just.
You could do a sample from it too.
Yeah, yep, that's a good point. Did I miss anything, Sandy, from your list to me?
Is the new antenna working great?
Yeah, the storm, something knocked it out May or March 19th, some power issue. I think Robin just told me that wherever the power is coming from, somewhere in this building got knocked out and it's actually still down. So I don't know where the power feed is, but it's still down.
Tied into the GFI plugins on the outside of the building. And it was tied into them, so a lot of them tripped. Because again, and I was wanting to have, we were seeing about running.
There's a,
He repaired or he replaced that.
there's a claim in there for him.
I'll
to
do
do
that.
To do that, just hasn't done it yet.
No, he's done it.
He ran a new wire.
No, he just fixed that.
Right, I want a new wire ran from the control, the panel box.
Should
for
be
the
on a
antenna.
dedicated circuit in the.
Just for the antenna.
Yeah, so unfortunately it's down and the reads are coming up this next week. So any way to get power restored to there before the 15th would probably make the meter readers slightly happier. But obviously it's no shortage of just spending a few extra hours driving meters, but.
Right.
And obviously if there's anything from our side we can help with, myself or Scott, we work on these a lot, so. Having power to our UPS, which is the gray box next to my white box, once that's there, we'll be back up.
Clarification.
Yeah.
$80,000 quote here.
Yeah.
Estimate of installation charge, estimate for tower installation and your bill. Does this include a tower? Or
No, the 15
including-
is just a number to say, hey, if we gotta allocate money to climb, restore, add on to a tower.
Right.
Rebuilding one out here, I know came in around 25. But I would hopefully, our goal was to not have to build any. And if we have to, maybe shop that number and see what else we can get that number down to, although the tower's fine out there. So I just kind of shot in the middle. Most water tower installations, which you guys don't necessarily have, the normal tanks here are around that 12 to 15.
I just want to make sure it's exclusive of a tower in the event we need to add a tower.
Yeah, you know, I've seen towers built for around that, but I've also seen them built for 30 and I've seen them built for 8. It just kind of depends on who they use, material, the height,
We got
They're-
quotes like that when we were hunting. for
yeah.
this.
So I just threw a number in there just to make sure there was some knowledge that, hey, outside of the hardware, we got to put something in for the, you know, if they have to pour concrete or get permits.
Well, at Outlands, they used to have a tower with, siren. I don't know if that's still there or not.
Where?
Up at Owl's house, when they used to have.
I recall that.
No, it's not
Maybe up
there.
there.
They took it out.
I recall something up in Al's at some point. We originally looked at it a long time ago.
So we had tanks up there.
Yeah.
We had a tank.
Are we good? Anything else?
Ben, can you tell them about that other antenna that's on the antenna out there? Because I didn't really understand it all.
There was a company coming in to do somewhat emergency communication on a as needed basis. And he was running in the same 900 megahertz that I transmit in. Now, when it comes to antennas, as long as there's 10 foot of separation vertically, and if it's horizontally, we like to go out. upwards of 10 feet on a different plane. There is no interference, so there is someone else out there on the tower, but we talked to their engineers and it should be no problem because they went underneath where our antenna is, so that radio does this big waves, their antenna's not getting it instead of us, we're on different planes, so it's like we don't even exist with each other. So.
Where's? Out here on our antenna.
Oh, right here.
Plus, there was it wasn't a constant thing, it was sort of like an as needed.
Right, so
In the event of-
in the event of emergency and all the cell stuff goes down, this would allow EMS people to be talking to one another.
Yeah. So we don't mind sharing space because if you think about top of the water tower, how much junk's up there, we're in a lot of those spaces, and as long as we have vertical separation, radio plays nicely, but when they're right next to each other on the same plane, they do not like each other. But no, that was a good heads up by Sandy. She caught that and I talked with them. They're up there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. And then let me know about or Walker about the meter stuff if you guys get in that 100. Okay.
Do we get to keep this one as a parting gift?
You know what?
I would have to.
Save the delivery fees. All right, discussion about the red bar and sewer flow meter.
Robin, did you identify a manhole that was exclusive to Red Barn?
Yeah,
Okay,
that was the floods, you know.
yeah, I figured as much.
I know there is a manhole there, but
We need to know if that was exclusive, or we need to add a manhole, like, affect the cost. The other question I had on this, during the floods, did it go over top the cleanouts? Anybody look at that?
I don't think it did.
It does, the RV park over there didn't go under. I don't know where the cleanouts are, but it stayed on the other side of the flood wall.
yeah, I've hardly, I don't think I've ever seen it come over that wall once.
Where was this, Robin? Just the red barn over on the south side of?
Yeah, opposite of
46?
the
Opposite
parking lift station.
Parkview? Yeah, there was no water over there.
Right, all right,
It stayed west of Parkview Lane.
well, you get a chance to look at that, let me know.
Okay. They're not on a grinder? They're on a gravity tube. They're on a gravity tube parking.
Yeah.
To the parking lift station, and I know where their lateral, see that's always been their lateral line. Across their property, it crosses the road, then it makes a 90 to the lift station, and I know it's not very deep on the other side. It's maybe a foot down, their lateral line running, which would be a good place.
It'd
to
be a good
put it.
spot to put a manhole, it wouldn't be that, if it's that shallow.
I think I remember it being pretty shallow.
Yeah, it would be in pretty good shape, I mean, manholes.
So it bears more
$4,000.
investigation is what you're saying.
Yeah. With it being solid, I might be able to probe it on the other side of the road. Running to the lift station.
All right. Discuss Gnawbone sewer extension.
You had sent me a text about that, I was curious, you said their treatment plant failed. What did
Yeah.
that mean?
So, I mean, just,
I know what happened. I talked to the guy.
yeah, go ahead.
There is a line that runs under the bridge. This is what he told me. They have a sewer line running under the bridge on Valley Branch Road. It busted. Well, with there being a vacuum system,
Yeah.
it sucked debris. And clogged their pumps. It's up and running now, but that's the gist I got out of the gentleman down there.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of issues with Gnawbone. I mean, Gnawbone's in significant need of repair, mostly due to extreme deferred maintenance, I think is the term that they use.
Very well phrased.
So there's a couple of options. The regional sewer district, we had some of the meetings last year. And there was conversation about them building a new plant out there, $8 million, they're sharp numbers. And I brought up to that group a couple of times that we should at least take a look at, well, maybe you're in those meetings also, so that we should at least look at the option of connecting to the Nashville sewer.
Yeah.
There's some conversation about they don't want to annex in, kind of a different piece of the conversation. I got a call from one of the county commissioners last week, asking, hey, what options do we have to help them long term? They have a quote for $150,000 that I sent to you guys that basically looks like a Band-Aid in an attempt to get a gun shop.
Right.
So they're trying to they need to fix their plant. A lot of other issues, and they need to fix their collection system. A lot of questions. Jim and I discussed this a bit. If we were to connect to Narbonne, do we have the capacity with the work that's going on here? Does that have the potential to negatively impact our existing base? So I think there's a lot of questions here, and I think what I would like to do a couple things. One, that we as a board want to at least engage with the county and Narbonne and to have a discussion of what, to give them a potential option. You know, this is something that could happen. Or not, you know, that's out of our range. We have our basis and we don't, it's your problem, we deal with it. I'm of the opinion personally that we should try to connect out there, whether we annex Narbonne or not. I'd like to get the line out there so that we could go by annexation with additional stuff that comes onto that line, even if Narbonne's not. But I think it's worth a discussion here to see, because we could, there's an ask from the commissioners for us to have a meeting with Nathan, the commissioners, and somebody from Narbonne to at least have a discussion. And before I did that, I wanted to at least have a conversation with the group. And see whether we can have that if that has to be a public meeting, or if we can have a meeting with the Narbonne people. I don't know how that would be.
If you have a quorum of this group, you'll have to post it.
So 2 of us go, then we're okay. Well, no, 2. So if 1 of us goes, it's okay. All right. So thoughts, conversation.
I don't think it would hurt to have a collaboration with everyone. It needs to be done. But not by me, but
From a capacity standpoint, I would imagine, the town could take on the flow from Narbonne.
Do we have any idea what it is?
You know, it's been a few years since I looked at the MROs, but it was somewhere around an aggregated flow of 20,000. The plant's rated for 600,000 and currently flows 300,000. So very, very small add to bring.
With the idea that if they bring additional development in that corridor, that direction, you know, at some point we may have to.
Will we be maintaining lift stations?
I think that's part of the question, because the
Yeah.
1.5 million to 2 was to run a line out there, put in 1 lift station, and then they connect their collection.
They do all that, and that's their baby. There's a lot of different options. I mean, it could grow, but it's gonna, regardless, it's gonna be a lot less than building their own plant.
So yeah, I think that's one option, was they still maintain their collection system, and then they would wholesale us the sewer and we deal with it.
Yeah, it'd be a master meter and they pay a wholesale rate based on that.
So we might have to maintain the main lift station that pumps to us.
That's all negotiable.
Depends on where you put your master meter.
So I guess my ask is it even possible? Can we do it? If you guys think we can, and I was concerned about that. And Tim, do we want to at least engage in a conversation to see where it goes? Certainly not offer to do it, but at least see what the conversation looks like. And
From an engineering perspective, your infrastructure could sustain.
you guys okay with you scheduling a call or scheduling a meeting with you guys?
Yes, my only 2 cents is, while like Alicia, I'm all in favor of cooperating with the county. It seems like the county can do us. I guess the other question in a Jarrod / Brandon way would be for the 20,000 gallons at the plant. What's the relative number for that in the way of quote unquote income? I don't have a feel for it.
Yeah, what's
I
the
know what
reference?
20,000 gallons is, because I use 2,000 gallons of water a month, so that's a year's worth of water. 20,000 gallons of sewage isn't a ton, but I'm not sure I understand. It would help me get my head around the whole question if I knew more about what that meant.
I think we
Revenue-wise.
can engage Jarrod to study that. Should this become maybe more real with the county?
Well, that's going to come down to who's going to pay for it. honestly, because I think part of this with the county is, I don't know that they have the money to do either option, so if it's something that we can do, fund it on a future sale. I know Dax had some ideas about how we can fund it.
I guess for fun.
Yeah.
I think the scale and magnitude is important, okay? Where I'm using 2,000 gallons a month. And I'm playing with numbers to make the math easy go in my head, but if I'm doing 2,000 gallons a month and that's $50 a month, then 20,000 gallons a month.
Okay.
I know, but 20,000 gallons a month would be $500 a month. And so if we take, right? If there were 10 of me, then it'd be 20,000 a month. And so, but the $500 times 30, that's $15,000 a month. And I guess I'm just saying, am I close? I think I'm close.
Well, that's based on an individual rate. You could bill them as a bulk rate, which would be less. So it really depends on where you want to land.
Or I guess you could
You
take
could be
$50 for
10
sewer and divide by 2,000. And multiply that times 20,000 a day is 500 times 30, $15,000 a month. And so I guess where I'm headed is, what do we think $15,000 a month in revenue, right? Times 12, that's $180,000 of revenue annually. So what can you buy? That.
I think another question I had is the delayed state park lift station, is it on that route?
It would be, but I will say that the delayed state park project included a new parallel force main from the state park to the Salt Creek lift station.
Okay.
That was a component of the state park's delayed project.
Would that be required for us to connect Gnaw?
No. It would be required to add the state park.
It seems to me like the question is, if we're only talking about 20,000 gallons a day out of the 300 normal, it's not nothing. It's not a bunch. It's not like half the plant capacity, but it's a significant amount. So we can do that. Would you cap the 20,000? What if that grew to 50?
Well,
Once you, I guess the issues I'm talking about is once you grab it, you got it. And once you grab it, then if you wanted to go up Jackson Branch, if you wanted to go to Annandale, if you wanted to go here, up Breezy Creek, wherever it might be, out towards the opera, wherever we might go, then all of a sudden we've used a chunk of capacity for Gnawbone. Is it the best use of capacity? And then the second parts, I guess, besides the should you or shouldn't you, how do you get the sewage from Gnawbone to here, and who pays for that? Right? And then it's just a case of treating the sewage. In other words, if someone said, oh, we're gonna give you 20,000 gallons and that's $200,000 a year worth of revenue, 200,000 on our 3.2 million, that's a big chunk of revenue. The question is, what's the cost to go with it?
and I think all these questions are fair questions that require answering or further development. I think later, Alan's ask is, do we want to figure out answers to these questions?
And I guess all I'm saying is, it seems like the county would be figuring out those questions and answers.
They need a willing
And then-
partner.
Yeah, I mean, you got the.
Well, and the question is, no, damn it, we're not, it's 5-1, we're never gonna let you dump it, then that's something they need to know. But beyond that, then the only question seems like, are we willing to, will we consider it? I'll consider it.
Is it progress?
I'll consider it. It's not like I'm slamming the door on them.
You said Commissioner reached out to you?
So, I mean, this has been on, we've discussed Gnawbone for years. It's in the
Yeah.
sewer master plan that's been out there for years. Last year, when we were doing the joint meetings with the regional sewer, I think I brought it up, Nathan and I discussed it a bit in some of those meetings, that basically the county was, the regional sewer district was trying to find a money to build a plant out there. And we had recommended that they at least consider other options like doing this connection. We didn't go into any more detail other than that, but then one of the county commissioners called me and said, let's have a further discussion about this, because I don't think there is grant money to solve this problem available. I don't think the county has the money to solve this problem. We're probably in a better financial position to help them solve this problem if it makes sense for the sewer and makes sense for the town. I guess my concern with the whole thing is if this were tied to an annexation, I'm all on board with it. But if it's not, then I think it's worth a deeper discussion with the town council to see, because I have concerns spending town money on sewer that doesn't benefit the town from a tax perspective. But I would want to vet that out. My ask is, do we have the capacity, and is everybody okay with me at least continuing the conversation to see how far we get?
All that, or when we'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll keep everybody in the loop.
I don't have any objection to talking.
Yeah, so, and I get your concerns. You and I had a big discussion about this the other day, so. Yeah, so.
Sounds like you're gonna play an active role.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, and you can absolutely have these meetings without me if you want to.
He does.
It's just,
to talk.
it's just, yeah.
Because you're asking good questions, Jim, that's why.
We don't need to vote on that or anything. I'm okay to go have a conversation. I'm not signing us up to anything, so, all right.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of talking to them.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
We're kind of running out of time. I mean, is everybody okay for a few more minutes so we can keep going? I hate to close past 12 o'clock.
I'm all right.
Tomorrow.
Young and restless, that'll come on for 12 hours.
All right.
I'll be very brief.
Okay. Yeah,
SmartAqua is still calibrating the second item. We gave them a bunch of data down. I still need to get with Robin once that's done, and we need to look for some of these leaks to see if it works.
Do they have the capacity to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do they have the capacity, we were putting cellular metering pressure at a dozen locations throughout our system, and they would be able to, could they pull that pressure data in and use it to improve their model?
Yes. In fact, it would be, we'd love to have it too, based on our hydraulic. It'd be nice to have.
Even I could see things,
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand, like, if we, without SmartAqua, I assume there's some dashboard view and some alert view where we would, even if we bought 20 of these things, where we would see pressure alerts and temperature alerts.
Yeah.
So I think it would be worth identifying where
You would,
20 of these things could go, that would give us some
oh, yeah,
insight into our system.
you would see that on Neptune's dashboard, pressure alerts.
Yeah, and we can give you locations, if you're gonna pick 20 of them, we can give you locations where we would like to see them based on our hydraulic model.
My opinion, we certainly discussed as a board, but I would like to see, if, let's just say we budgeted 20 of them, pick a number that did make sense. Where would you put them and what would the benefit to the system be? Would it allow us to detect leaks quicker? Would it allow us to detect spikes quicker? Would it allow us to, if we spent the money on whatever 20 of these things are at $600 a pop, what's the value in that? And ignore whether they're in range of our radio meters or not, because we're in pressure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's there, that's good.
we used to have a customer on Brigham Ridge that would sit in her basement on storm days when we had pumps up at House Garage. She would sit in her basement and call me and tell me the pressure in that area.
I told you the other day, I told you the pressure was dropped.
She actually had a pressure gauge.
Yeah.
And we would watch it.
I have a pressure gauge in mine.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, what was it?
That's it. And then, the last item, are we still on for April 25th?
It's 10 a.m. Yeah, I have
Still
the
good?
25th, yeah, I'm good. If you are.
Yeah, that's great.
got 2 weeks to get ready.
April 25th. Attend.
We'll be there.
We'll be here for Friday.
Our schedule 10 to noon, just.
Yeah.
Fine. That time.
Okay.
Okay, that's
All right,
it.
anything else? All right. Other business. Dina and Darlene were here. Did you guys have anything or were you just? Audience to go back?
A lot of things.
All right, Jimmy, what do you got?
First, I want to thank Alan Brown for finding the easement agreement from 1985.
I didn't find it. I did hand it to you, but yeah, I can't take credit for finding it.
Okay. Well, somebody found it and it wasn't us, or,
86, the
86,
1986.
yes.
Okay.
I've got a copy of that if you want to see it. I'm not going to ask you to read it or anything like that, but I do want you to at least look at it.
They have it.
Is it in the packet?
Yeah, it's the very last.
The 86, so obviously the 1961 and 73 easements were insufficient to put the sewer main along Tree Plant Road because there was a 1986 easement agreement. So, but the fact there is an 86 easement confirms that what you had before was not adequate. The 86 easement agreement, it says, on the bottom of the first page says, is granted for the purpose of permitting grantee to construct, maintain, and operate said sewer transmission line. On the next page it says, grantee is granted the right to maintain the line as maintenance becomes necessary from time to time and to repair the line as necessary in perpetuity. So what has happened is they have put in 1986, a said sewer main line. It's an 8-inch line. So you have permission to maintain and repair it. Maintain and repair it. It doesn't say that you can replace or you can add another line next to it. It says said sewer main. So do you think that adding more capacity, going from an 8-inch to a 12-inch is actually maintaining or repairing the line? I'm not an attorney, but I would say it probably is overburdening the easement. We have tried to work with Wanda Jones and we're not getting very far at all. I think you guys deserve some representation of yourselves. I would like to work with you guys. I want to know if you guys are willing to talk with us. I can go into a lot more detail if you want to know, but at the end of the day, I know your time's running short. I want to know that you're willing to work with us or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for everyone. Yeah, I think we're willing to work with you. I don't know. I know some of this is in pending litigation still, so there's a hearing scheduled, isn't there, still regarding the events, or are we out of litigation?
No.
So, yeah, I guess I don't know if
Did
there's,
you drop something?
It was dropped.
Oh, when was that dropped?
The hearing was supposed to be yesterday
Okay.
for the temporary restraining order because there's a line being put in and we were like, hey, we need to talk about this because we don't think you have the right to put it in. And then and then the judge wanted to wait a little bit and well, now it's already in. So there's nothing to talk about.
Okay, so when was it dropped? I'm just writing
This
down
week.
dates. This week,
Yes.
like Monday?
I don't know what day it was, but it was this week. It wasn't today. Probably Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. So there is no litigation.
yeah,
I don't understand, define the term work with you. I'm not sure.
Well,
I want to be sure I understand.
yeah, we believe there is an easement, an additional easement that's needed to have a new line put in.
Okay, I don't.
Is, so,
And we're just talking about understanding. I'm not an attorney, I'm not anything. We're just talking, right? So I'm trying to talk. So I like Jimmy and want to talk to Jimmy. Okay. I think we're okay. That's just me. I don't know that you're right, the capacity is higher.
Going from 8 inch to 12 inch is not just a little bit, it's actually more than doubling the capacity. If you do
Yeah.
IR squared,
12 times 12 would be,
it's more than doubling the capacity.
Right.
Which I am actually not against the project at all. I don't want to be perceived as being anti-sewer. I'm not. I actually do want to see the sewer be successful and grow, and because we need more infrastructure.
and what do we need to do?
I want our property to be, and us to be treated like we have ownership of the property and not just we can just run through whatever we want to, run through your property and take what we want because we just feel we can. I don't think
What do
that
we take? Again, I'm trying to understand,
Yeah.
get my head. I understand
Yeah.
there's push-pull here.
Yeah.
There has been for 3 months. And just like you, I'm tired of it. But I guess what do you want from me? How can I help you? I mean, we can talk and we're talking, but I don't
would
understand
like to
exactly
have
what.
I would like to
I
have,
haven't treated you badly, so.
I'm mostly saying this as far as not your representation, the town's representation has not
That's a separate question. This is the USB,
So
so
this is the first time I'm coming to you guys as a board, I believe. I've come before the town council, but
how can we help you?
I would like to have a conversation about easements. An easement for the pipe you already put in. The 12-inch main.
Okay, well, can we have one, please?
I don't know if today, if you have time to do that, but
No, I didn't mean a discussion. What objections? If it's simply to have a surveyor or to have this redrafted, there's nothing hard about that. Are you saying you want us to redraft it to include the 12-inch main now, or I'm not sure. I'm just trying to
we
understand.
believe the easement is overburdened. It's an overburdened easement. You're doing more than that's what is allowed in the capacity of the easement from 1986.
Do you have any objection to us getting an easement that makes you happy?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I want a new easement.
Then what are we, then what, okay,
Yeah.
So what we need to do is go in here where it says 8-inch, mark 8-inch out and put 12 and we're done, yes?
Well, it's probably more than that, but yeah, it's understanding that you did put something in there that you shouldn't have, not you personally, obviously, you probably had no idea.
I disagree, but okay.
I'd like to have some negotiations on the matter.
What's the negotiation?
Well, there's price, and then also, we could talk about other things that may not cost me anything. But, so I would like to have a commitment to at least have a conversation, a negotiation on it. And if you don't think we need to negotiate, then I would ask that you find some representation, some outside third-party representation that can take a look at the 86 agreement, and we can go from there. But your current attorney from the town has I'll just say
Now
misstated
you're talking
facts.
to, now you're talking to the town.
Yeah.
You're not talking to us.
So,
I'm not on the town council,
Right.
so I can't render any opinion having to do with what they're doing.
well, they did list you without your knowledge or consent as a plaintiff last year on the eminent domain on our property.
Okay.
So they are representing you even though you didn't want it, apparently.
No, I didn't say that. I said the town council, we serve the town council, so the town council or whatever wanted to write all that down. I get that part. That's no surprise. We're under their umbrella.
You also have the right to have your own representation. And what I'm saying today is, I think you,
I don't need any, personally, I don't need any representation.
well, not personally, as far as your board is, not personally, but as the board.
And we serve the town council, and when the town council tells us to get I'm just saying we're under their umbrella. I still don't understand what we're.
I don't feel like.
You
I can-
said
Yeah.
what I understand so far is you're saying that we increased the capacity and that's changed the easement. And I'm just one person, but for me, I disagree. I don't think we changed anything. We replaced the pipe, decommissioned the one, put in a new one. And so for me personally, we haven't done anything other than take the sewage that used to be coming from the Brown County end, and we're still sending sewage. If the question is, oh my gosh, over 40 years, the amount of sewage has changed, okay. But we're just maintaining that. That's just me. And I'm not trying to be technical. I'm not trying to have it all typed up in the meeting minutes. I'm just trying to communicate with Jimmy and tell you, I disagree. We have a disagreement. You think one thing, and apparently the town or whoever thinks something different. And so I'm not speaking for the other four board members, and I'm not speaking for the board. I'm just talking Jim Kramer and Jimmy Tilton. I disagree with you. I think the easement covers us. And that's just me. But we're gonna go round and round and round and round and round and round in circles, and we're gonna be talking about for 800 years. But now I have an opportunity to talk to you in a forum where I can tell you I disagree. That's all. I want to work with you.
I'm happy to hear that you want to work with us because it feels like that has not happened.
I also read the list of things you'd like to have. And none of those things have anything to do with the USB per se. They're town council things.
I don't think we've given a list of anything.
I saw a list once upon a time that we're asking for changing the name of the road,
Oh, that's-
de-annex this, a number of different
That is
things.
a different easement for a different part of that's a different part of the property. That's not what we're talking about here.
Okay.
That matter was resolved.
Okay,
But since you do bring it up, that was the eminent domain issue that got brought up on February 12th of last year. Well, your council has, so your council being the town council, legal council, filed an eminent domain lawsuit against us, saying that the plaintiffs attempted to negotiate in good faith the purchase of the said property from the defendant who holds legal title to the same and did by certified mail serve on said defendant and offer to acquire land as required by Indiana Code section 23-11-1-2.1. Notwithstanding such good faith negotiations, the defendants refuse to agree to the terms offered and by such conduct have forced the plaintiff to resort to condemnation. That's on point 5 of the lawsuit. We did not have any negotiations at that point. So it was, I'll just say it's a mistruth.
That's incorrect.
Jimmy, I don't think you guys own the property at that point either, did
We
you?
were in escrow
Right.
as of January.
So I don't really want to rehash that one out.
This is the first time I'm bringing this up.
I'm not party to your lawsuit, but I'm here to help you, but this is the USB. How can we help you? Talking about that is something,
Okay.
I'm not trying to, what
I'm
I'm
saying
saying
is
is, I'm just saying, I think you're talking to the wrong people.
The town attorney is, I'll just say, probably not, you need different representation. It's bottom line. You need different representation, one that's not.
I don't believe we do.
Jim, what is your asking
I-
from us right now? What do you?
I'm asking to talk about some good faith negotiations on the Green Plant Road.
So then the question would be, you want us to schedule an executive meeting to discuss the easement which I would want to confirm that there is no pending litigation over it before we have any discussion.
Right, and I'll have to see if executive session falls under one of the choices.
Don't think it does.
Okay, it would be a separate public hearing then where we have discussion.
It would just be a posted meeting.
So do we then as a board have to make a motion and then vote on whether we want to have this meeting? That would be my. Okay. So does anyone on the board want to make a motion to have a separate meeting? I don't want to do it in our, if we do it, I don't want to do it as part of our normal meeting. Schedule a separate meeting with Jimmy to discuss this. My caveats being, I want to see whether there's any existing litigation that's still pending on this to make sure I'm not going to get involved in it if it is. And I don't know whether it needs to be an executive meeting or a public meeting, but we can sort that out if anybody wants to make a motion.
You better find out the litigation first. Before we land.
Okay, wait until we find out what the status of the litigation is.
This is just one guy. I'm not interested in talking about, I'm not interested in sitting down and discussing. I'd like to know what, I mean, here's Jimmy. What do you want, Jimmy? If you want to just mark out the 8-inch and put in 12-inch, let's do that. If there's something else, then I don't know that we're the right people to be talking to. I don't know what you want from me. You follow what I'm saying? I don't.
We need a new, I believe we need a new easement. That's what I believe, and
Okay.
you may not know what you need yet because you don't have representation, so we can't say what you need or not, we just believe that you need it, but you need to make sure that you need it or not.
But you want you want us to buy this from you, it's not something you just want us to correct.
Let's make this real quick, simple. I don't think I need it, because I have one. The only person that seems to think that we need one is you. If it weren't for you thinking I need a new easement, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Does that make sense?
If that's the way you feel about it, I've held back on calling SRF, I've held back on everything. I'm trying to work with you on a new easement. And before we found out about this 86 easement, the assumption was that the old easements were good enough, which we know is not true. So there's been a lot of history here that is just icky. It's just really icky.
Well, let's wrap this up. So does anybody want to make a motion to schedule a separate meeting to discuss this in more detail?
I do not want to. I don't need to make a motion.
Hearing no motion.
I don't understand what I'm talking about.
Will you at least get your own representation? Second opinion?
Representation suggests there's litigation. So is there litigation?
There's not yet. I don't
Okay.
know, there's not. I'm not threatening litigation. I want to have.
I'm not either.
I want to have open discussion.
Well, you are threatening to call us our.
Jimmy, what is it that you want? If we talk about this, what is it that you want? Do you know what you want?
I would like our property to be respected for the rights it has, for one. And I do not feel that our property has been respected for the rights it has.
Okay, so you want me to, do I need to pencil up a note?
And it's not even
I don't
about, it's
understand.
not even about a dollar amount. I just feel that we have not been respected. Our property rights have been disrespected over and over.
Isn't that something that you should take up with the town council? Or let me ask it differently. Has the USB done anything that says we're not respected? I don't, because I think we had an easement there and we have professionals that we've hired. And the professionals said to put in replace the sewer, and we've done that.
Well, I'm coming before you because you are the utilities service board.
Yeah.
So I'm starting with you guys at this point.
And
But you haven't told me what you want yet. You still have not told me what you want. Other than you want respect. You're here,
Yes.
we're talking. Isn't that respect?
not when there's still a sewer main line that doesn't belong there.
Ooh. Tell me more about that. We have a sewer line that doesn't belong.
Yes, because your easement from 1986 says that you have the purpose, you have, the right to, repair and maintain
That's
said.
what we've done, was
That's
repair
not a
and
repair and
maintain.
maintain, that is is expansion of the capacity, that's not regular maintenance or repair work. That's a new line, and now there's two lines in the ground.
The
No,
old
two.
line is abandoned, correct?
It's still there, it's not abandoned, it's still being used, that's my understanding. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but,
Well, for right now, yeah.
so there's two lines right now, there's not a said sewer line, there's two. Now, I don't think it's, if you can tell me if it's in the plans to remove the old one, or am I stuck with two now? I don't know. Again, I believe you're overburdening your easement.
Okay.
Okay, hearing no motion to schedule a separate meeting, just not gonna make it, so,
I have more. There was flood damage, it's unrelated to the easement stuff. We've had floods recently, and that's originally why I was gonna come over here anyway, I wanted to be on the agenda, but of course the flood happened after the agenda was made. There's a lot of debris that came into our farm. I've got pictures of it if you'd like to see it.
Debris
From the road. So gravel, one of the responsibilities of the town is to,
you'd like for us to,
I'm making you aware of this.
what would you like for us to do?
I'd like to have a conversation about how, I'm not asking any, not making any demands of you, I'm just wanting you to know that there is damage occurring when your floods happen. And this is some pictures of where the roads wash out and strewn gravel and rocks over our farm.
We have an obligation to maintain it, right?
And you are obligated, yes, to maintain the road so it doesn't wash out. And yes,
We can't maintain the road so it doesn't wash out in a flood.
it's actually part of that 86 easement
Shall raise and lower the grade
As
of the
needed.
road.
as needed. Yes,
So how can you tell Helmsburg that they need to move the road?
I'm just
There's a
saying,
flood.
it floods, we know it floods. It's not totally unusual,
Right.
right? It floods. Part of the easement is to make sure it doesn't flood. And
How can you prevent something from flooding?
It floods over the road, not floods over the road, not floods the farm. Obviously, the whole place floods anyway. But having it obvious, my dad didn't know this, but the road is actually blacktop underneath. So at some point, the whole road, 2,000 feet of road was blacktop. And then the town decided to take some shortcuts, not you guys. No one here was part of that. Take shortcuts and get gravel on top. Well, when the flood comes in, it's just really easy for that top layer of gravel just to go whoosh into our farm.
Did you ever see it blacktop? I've never seen it blacktop.
There's pictures of it.
No, I'll tell you what that is right now. You know what that is? That's bean oil that we put on it last year. That's not asphalt. That's caused from that bean oil we put on last year to keep the dust down. And it compacted, it acted like a chipping seal.
Yeah.
That's what that
That's
is.
what that is.
That's gravel's washed off the other side. No, it's the bean oil that made that strip you just showed me.
So the bean oil, it is bean oil, is acting, it's also washed out into the farm.
No,
It's in the farm.
no,
That's
your gravel washes out there. Before the plant was there,
It's not our
did it
gravel.
flood before the plant was there?
It's flooded for probably.
Yeah, before the plant was there. So
It's
who's taking care of that gravel washing out then?
But the water has washed the gravel into our farm. And farmers don't like gravel and rocks in their farm.
Okay.
it just doesn't work very well. Stony ground,
We need to clean that up. We
and
need
it
to do
looks like the town has already started to try to clean it up, or maybe they've already finished, but if they finished, they didn't do the job right, and they didn't even tell me that they had an oopsie with gravel going on their farm. I haven't gotten no calls yet.
Well, one thing is, we're afraid to leave the driveway to go and get gravel that's over there to repair it. Because we can't drive outside them stakes to recover any gravel.
Well,
So they've got the excavator to reach out there as far as they could to pull back as much as that gravel is there. We're waiting for floods to cease before we go and attempt to grab more and more. Because we're probably gonna have some more floods here coming up.
it
It's
happens.
this year.
It happens.
Yeah, so, but we're doing the best we can without going outside of our easement to recover that gravel. I've got 2 pipes across the road, leaning in the, floated way over. I'm afraid to go get them because I can't walk across that field or drive across it.
So, we probably need to research this one a bit more, but before we, say typically, at least in Indiana, typically, storm damage like this, isn't the responsibility of the driveway owner, it would be property owner, unless there was something wrong with the driveway that caused it. Just double check that out, we can.
We can also look at the easements from 61 and 73.
Yeah.
And it does reference that in the 86 easement.
But maintaining the road and cleaning up gravel that washed off of it is probably not the same thing. I would suggest that we look into this a little bit more, we can have a conversation. How long to look at it, but I don't think cleaning up the gravel is gonna fall into something that we're responsible for. You guys have done some of it. That's a different thing, but I'd have to look into this one.
In the past, the town there have been legal action in the past from my grandfather, which this is multi-generational. Since every generation is a new instance where the gravel washes into the farm, and so I believe my grandfather actually had to sue the town to clean it up and won.
We'll have to
Robin, what do you need to clean up what's there? Is it a hard thing to do? Or?
Well, they
It sounded like you were concerned that you were going outside the easement.
Yeah, we can't drive outside the mistakes.
Is Jimmy telling us we can?
I'm coming before you to give you information first. I'm not demanding anything of you right now.
But if we want to try and clean it
And
up,
I would like to have discussion on cleaning it up. I want to work with you on cleaning it up. I'm not opposed to the idea. I want to make sure there's good communication and not like, it feels like there was a hit and run, like, oh, hit you and they run, and before they run away, they're gonna try to clean it up a little bit so I don't notice. But I've noticed it.
We always try to recover the gravel and put it back on the road. It all makes sense. We have for years, ever since I've been here.
Yeah.
Drive down there,
And-
cover, pull it back on the road.
I don't really have an issue with that today. I just would like to be in the loop. Say, hey, there's a flood, it's washing gravel out. Can we go and clean it up? Something simple, but I feel like.
So as grown men, we have to ask permission
here you are
to
today.
not do
Well, I actually would say
can we go clean it up?
I wouldn't do it without some kind of written agreement to do it. I mean, there's been too much,
Agreed upon.
things have gotten too litigious overall and stuff, so I think before, one, we should decide whether we have to, which is a different question than whether we want to, but if we do want to, I would not do it without written permission from the property owner, being very specific on what we can and can't do, because I don't want somebody to get mad at us for crossing over the wrong side of the estates and go back to court or something. So I think we can decide whether we have to, we can decide whether we want to, but if we do decide whether we want
Okay
to,
with me.
we need written permission that outlines what that license to enter your property to clean up gravel will even look like. So we can do that with the, with discussion. I think from our side, I'd like to research, do we have to ask the question, do we want to? And I think we probably want to, because we probably want to recapture that gravel.
Yeah.
If we can, we don't want to just keep on gravel. But I also don't want you to be mad at Robin because he put a rut in your field because he shovel a load of gravel over it, so
Well, yeah,
before we do
any
any of it.
attempt that you make to get some gravel is gonna be some gravel.
Right, so we're not signing on written agreement, we're not, I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that.
You know, the fire.
But Jimmy, I'll look at, I'll look at it and I'll talk to Wanda about whether we have to or not, and then use the board next time when we figure out some more details. We'll put it on the agenda whether we want to. Whether we want some.
And this is not with you guys, but it's related to you guys. Here's some pictures of, this has been earlier this year. Here's the stakes, the 20-foot stake lines. And put up the way the 20-foot stake lines were based on the 1973 easement, not 86. It's quite obvious that's the case. Picture you can see, and it's not just about stake lines, it also shows that there's ruts being made on our property where vehicles, if you look on page 4 of 7, you can see 2 vehicles actually going through our farm at the same time. One's obviously a town vehicle and the other I don't know, it's a brush pickup truck. Intentionally going on our property to make just, I don't know, make ruts, I don't know.
No, they weren't. They were going around the construction here, and that kid has been let go since then. And they were going around because the construction was going on down the road. So they thought they evidently in their mind thought they could drive around it. So it wasn't an intentional, let's damage property. It was them not thinking, as young kids do.
You're probably correct.
It hasn't been dry enough to go out there and sort of just doing it with the rake.
And then on page 7, it shows that our property is being used as a storage staging area. That's outside of the 20-foot easement. For parking cars and putting gravel out.
And wasn't that removed after it was brought to somebody's attention? That was my understanding, that's what happened.
Well, of course it could move because we use the gravel for the project.
No, it was moved when it was brought to the attention that they were outside of the easement. So let's state facts.
Okay, then I'll say it was brought to your attention. Back on page 3, which is a different timeline, if I could have it dated, but on page 3, you see the snow on the ground and the crews were outside their 20-foot easement. I said, hey, you guys are outside your 20-foot easement. Okay, well, let's not stay inside lines. Well, then again, you'll see on page 7 of 7, it's different instances. It's not snowed, but yet again, they're outside of their 20-foot easement. It just seems to happen over and over and over again. And I just wish there's more cooperation and respect. And there hasn't been any cooperation, it feels like. Also on page 2 it says, there's a manhole that's on the road. It's partially covering the road a little bit, and as you come in off of 46, it kind of goes down and it turns. And I'm afraid that someday someone's going to come down and slide and run into that manhole. That manhole is tall enough, it's going to cause some damage, but not so tall you can actually see it from 6 feet up.
Is that on our property?
That is on town property.
But it's part of the easement, that 20-foot easement.
It's on the town property. We own property up that way.
My question is that part of the 20-foot easement for ingress and egress? Because that would be for both of us to be able to use it.
I don't know, we have to survey it.
It's close to the highway.
Because there's not 20 feet here. You've got 20 feet.
That's close to the highway. Yeah, well, there's also an easement there for the water itself. Water from the water. So the county water, right?
It's under our water line.
Yes,
It's
right here.
on-
We have
The
an 8-inch
manhole is
water
on our
line.
side of the county meter vault.
So right
We
now,
have a main that runs right past that.
your road is being narrowed. This is not 20 feet wide.
Okay.
So it's narrowing it. And I would say it's a hazard.
So we have to cut that further into the woods to get to 20 feet.
Or
That's
or
what-
raise the ground up so that it's not a hazard anymore. I just don't want someone to get hurt. I want people to be able to come in and out of the farm. I mean, wouldn't you guys want that? Because you guys are the ones that use that road like 99.9% of the time anyway.
Jimmy, I love you, but you weren't very direct. You show us a picture of the manhole and then
Yeah.
say it's a hazard, you're worried.
Yeah.
Why don't you just be direct and say, would you please raise the road near the manhole?
Would you please raise the road to the manhole?
That I can understand. At least, it's like,
I mean, there's options. You don't have to do that. You could move the manhole somewhere else,
If-
but.
if you want to,
We can take
If
the
it's-
road.
And on our property.
it's not bothering us, though. We don't, for the
There's been semis
utility
coming in
people
and
that
out
go in
there.
and out of there, it hadn't become a problem for us.
Is this one are you asking us to do something about this one, Jimmy, or is this more making us aware?
Right now, it's making you aware, and I think that something could be done, but again, I'm not ready to say, hey, this has to be done this way. I'm saying something should be done.
Is there something that's preventing you from doing it?
It's not my property.
But yes, it is.
Well,
It's an easement.
No,
That's the.
Well, it's town property.
Oh, okay, it's different.
That, the property that manhole's on is owned by the town now.
What would we have to do to check I mean, you said we need to survey it, we don't have we have to survey that to see.
I didn't know
How
the
close it
town
is to
owned
the
anything.
easement to their.
We,
It'd be nice to see what that acre is up there, how much property we own up front.
it would be interesting to
You're
get a
talking about
legal,
a little slice. No,
it's a little teeny slice that you guys own.
it's an acre.
It's an acre.
Would you want to survey that or the whole road?
200, yeah.
We've got the road, we've got it staked,
Yeah, the 20 foot, not the 26.
the 20 foot is staked.
What would the cost be to survey that
I'd say,
part?
I mean, last time we had, the staking done, it was about 5,000.
but right now you're just making us aware that we have a manhole we
You
can
know
worry
it.
about.
I think we need a
Robin, are
legal,
you worried about the manhole today? Okay.
You need a legal.
I think we need a legal interpretation as to whether there truly is an easement which exists on that 1 acre in favor of the Tillmans. So that would be a fair question.
Easement, as far as the egress easement?
Well, when the 70, I know for sure, when the easements were drafted in the late 60s, early 70s, the Tillmans owned what is now that 1 acre. I don't know how the town came to be in possession of that 1 acre.
Okay.
I would say we probably need an attorney to look at whether the Tillmans still have the easement on the 1 acre, or if that easement was null and void by the sale of the property.
Gotcha.
I don't know, I'm an engineer, not an attorney.
Sure.
Yeah, and I don't know any about easements that are on the property, so it would be egress easement for them, is what you're.
Ingress, egress.
Ingress, egress, I don't know, I mean, in the 60s, it was just an easement.
Ingress, egress. 61.
The attorneys would have to interpret that.
And that was a 10-foot easement, and 73 became a 20-foot easement. So now you have 20 feet all the way down to 10. So now you can actually have cars coming and going, where before you really couldn't.
What car is coming and going?
To and from the plant.
So, Sandy, we capture that, let's look at whatever easements exist on that
Would
property.
we ever have cars? I guess you could have a truck going in and out or something where we could pass one.
That's probably why they have 20 feet.
And my concern is that we've got a 20 foot easement and he has a 10 foot easement through that property, so it probably isn't. But we probably should look at it and see.
They don't know.
Okay, we'll look at the easement. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? No? All right.